My name is Heather Lauer, and I would like to welcome you to Ohio EPA's public information session and public hearing to discuss an application by Rumpke Sanitary Landfill to expand the landfill. We're going to be talking about a draft permit to expand, a draft wastewater permit, and 2 draft air permits. There's a lot that we've combined into one meeting so that folks don't say, hey, we came for one thing and we want to hear everything together. So bear with me, please, because I've got a lot of stuff that I have to read that goes along with it. With me tonight are Michael Harris. Michael, raise your hand so the people in the back can see you. Michael's an engineer and permit reviewer for Ohio EPA's Division of Materials and Waste Management. He works in our Southwest District office, and he did the engineering review of the expansion permit. Next is Sarah Harvey. Sarah is an environmental specialist, also in Ohio EPA's Southwest District office. Sarah reviewed the application for the draft wastewater discharge permit. And finally, Brad Miller. Brad is the Assistant Director of the Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency. He was involved in reviewing the permit applications for the 2 draft air permits. In a moment, each of these folks will give a presentation about the permit applications that they reviewed. I'd like to draw your attention to the registration table. You guys passed it on the way in. If anyone did not get a copy of the presentation or the agenda, then you can get up and go get that. We have white cards so that if you have not been on the Rumpke interested parties list, you can fill those out and we will put you on there. Also, on the back of your agenda, we have all of the contact information and all of the addresses that you can write to if you want to submit written comments. As you may know, Ohio EPA holds public meetings of this type to provide information on draft permits and obtain comments from any interested parties on the draft permit. So after we have the presentation, we'll have a question and answer period. I'll go through one question and one follow-up, and then I'll go to someone else. I'll get back around to everybody, but that's so one person who may have 10 really good questions doesn't end up being the one person on the floor all night. And then we'll take a short break and we'll go into the public hearing. We're going to allow 5 minutes. Usually it's 3, but we're going to go 5 minutes for each comment or each person to comment, and we'll go from there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Heather. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Harris, and I'm the engineer for Ohio EPA who reviewed the proposed landfill expansion permit to install application for the Rumpke Sanitary Landfill. And tonight, I'm here to discuss the proposed expansion and my review of the permit application. So when reviewing a permit application, what can Ohio EPA consider? Well, landfill applications must include the use of best available technology, which is a set of rules written according to Ohio law that limits a landfill's location, design, operation, and closure and post-closure standards. There are several aspects to a landfill that Ohio EPA does not have the authority to consider, including local zoning. Any zoning codes will be enforced by local officials. Where the waste is generated, whether in-state or out-of-state, truck traffic, property values, noise, and popularity of the site. Again, these are things that we cannot consider. Today's modern landfills are different from yesteryear's dumps. No longer are landfills located in former gravel pits or local ravines. Today's landfills are engineered systems designed to protect human health and the environment. Today's landfills are comprised of many components, including a liner system. Now, the liner system is a sturdy foundation designed to prevent leachate from escaping the landfill. leachate is the moisture that has come into contact with trash. The leachate collection system is designed to capture and contain the leachate. The cap system is an impenetrable lid that prevents moisture from entering closed portions of the landfill. And as the waste decomposes inside the landfill, it generates landfill gas as a byproduct. Gas extraction wells are placed across the landfill to remove the gas, preventing it from building up inside the landfill. Rumpke's gas extraction system actually captures the gas to be flared off or to be processed into electricity or natural gas. And in addition to the gas extraction system, gas monitoring devices are located around the perimeter of the landfill to monitor for gas migration. And similarly, groundwater is monitored through a series of groundwater monitoring wells. And surface water is managed through a series of letdowns and control berms that direct rainwater and snowmelt off the landfill and into retention ponds. These ponds allow solids to settle out before clean water is discharged. So let's take a look at the proposed expansion and the events leading us up to tonight's meeting. On April 5th, of 2018, Ohio EPA received a permit application to expand the Rumpke Sanitary landfill. On May 17th, Rumpke held an applicants meeting to discuss the proposed expansion with the public. After reviewing the permit application, the first notice of deficiency letter, or NOD, was issued on July 18th, and a response to the deficiencies was received on September 17th. On October 11th, Ohio EPA held a public meeting to provide an update on the permit application review. A second NOD was issued on November 1st, 2018, with subsequent deficiencies discussed throughout that November and December, and responses to these deficiencies were received on multiple dates during December. On December 28th, the Director of Ohio EPA issued a draft action approval for the permit application, and tonight we're here for the public information session and public hearing. So here's an aerial view of Rumpke Sanitary Landfill. As you know, Rumpke is located north of Struble Road, south of Bank Road, between US 27 and I-275 here in Colerain Township. Outlined in black is the existing permitted limits of waste placements, and the proposed expansion is highlighted here in yellow. Currently, Rumpke is permitted for 330 acres of waste placement and 91 million cubic yards of airspace. The proposed expansion would add 240 acres and 105 million cubic yards of airspace for a total of 196 million cubic yards. The landfill's current elevation is approximately 1058 feet above mean sea level and is permitted for a maximum elevation of 1074 feet, or about 20 feet higher than it is today. The proposed expansion will have a maximum elevation of 1,200 feet. The life of the landfill is calculated based on the remaining airspace and how much waste is accepted. If the facility takes in the maximum 12,500 tons per day, there's approximately 4.5 years of airspace remaining. If the facility takes in the anticipated 10,000 tons per day, there's about 5.5 years of airspace remaining. The proposed expansion would add approximately 20 to 25 years of life to the facility. So, with all these numbers, what do they look like? Well, let's take a look at a cross-section of the landfill across this black dashed line here. So here we see the existing landfill and the current topography of the proposed expansion area. This part of the landfill has a current elevation of approximately 1034 feet above mean sea level. The facility will continue to place waste until it reaches its final elevation. This area will be approximately 1052 feet. What Rumpke is proposing is excavating the liner system, or excavating the expansion area, constructing the liner system, and filling with waste to a maximum elevation of 1,200 feet. So taking a closer look at the liner system, the proposed liner system will include excavating the subgrade, 3 feet of recompacted soil liner, a 60 mil textured HDPE geomembrane or plastic liner, which I do have samples later we can kind of look at. It is this thick plastic liner. Next will be a cushioned geotextile layer to protect the plastic liner. And finally, a 1 foot thick drainage layer. And all this would be constructed prior to waste placement. All right. Compliance and monitoring. To ensure compliance with the permit, the landfill is routinely inspected and monitored. Rumpke conducts daily inspections of the landfill and is required to complete a daily log of operations. These logs discuss the facility's maintenance and operations and detail any ponding, erosion, or leachate outbreaks that may have occurred. Additionally, Rumpke conducts weekly inspections of the sedimentation ponds and their discharge structures. And Hamilton County Public Health conducts routine unannounced inspections of the landfill. Groundwater is monitored through a series of groundwater monitoring wells. These wells are sampled semi-annually, with the latest sampling event occurring this past March. Rumpke also maintains a gas monitoring network that is sampled monthly to monitor for gas migration. As part of the permit, Rumpke maintains a closure post-closure plan that details how the facility will conduct closure and post-closure activities. And financial assurance is also required for the landfill. Now, financial assurance is money set aside by the facility for Ohio EPA to use in the event that Rumpke is unable to close the landfill. This value is based upon a worst-case scenario of an open working site and a third party conducting the closure activities, as well as 30 years of post-closure care. So, the groundwater monitoring network. Currently, there are 34 groundwater monitoring wells and piezometers surrounding the landfill. The monitoring locations are highlighted here in blue, and some of these locations actually have multiple wells. As you can see, some of the wells are located within the proposed expansion area. So as the proposed expansion progresses, these wells highlighted in red would be abandoned. As these wells are abandoned, 16 new groundwater monitoring wells are proposed to be installed. The final proposed groundwater monitoring network would consist of a combination of 41 groundwater monitoring wells and piezometers. So looking now at the gas monitoring network, currently there are 27 explosive gas monitoring wells and 9 punch bars surrounding the landfill. As you can see, some of the existing gas probes and punch bars are located within the proposed expansion area. Again, as the proposed expansion progresses, these monitoring locations highlighted in red would be abandoned. As these locations are abandoned, 9 new gas probes and punch bars are proposed to be installed. The final gas monitoring network would consist of a combination of 21 gas probes and punch bars. So the solid waste permit is not the only permit Rumpke needs for the proposed expansion. They also need an air permit that Brad's going to be discussing tonight, and a surface water permit that Sarah will be talking about. Additionally, Rumpke needs both the 401 and 404 water quality certifications. These certifications are required for projects that propose placing fill or dredge into state or federal waters, including lakes, streams, and wetlands. The 401 was approved on August 2nd, 2018, and the 404 was approved on February 12th, 2019. So what are the next steps in the solid waste permitting process? Well, after the presentations, I'll answer your questions about the permit application review and the solid waste permitting process. Next, we'll move into the public hearing where we will accept comments in support or opposition of the draft action approval. Then, after the public comment period is closed, Ohio EPA will respond to the public comments. And then finally, the director will either issue or deny the permit. All right, other opportunities for you to stay informed and involved include signing up for the contact list if you haven't done so already, and participating during the public comment period. If anyone is interested in reviewing the permit application, copies are available for review at the facility, at the local health department, at Ohio EPA's Southwest District Office located in Dayton, or online through Ohio EPA's eDocs system. I just want to note that the permit application is a very large file, so it may take several minutes for the file to load up. As mentioned before, the solid waste permits is one of 4 permits that we're discussing here tonight that Rumpke needs for the proposed expansion. So with that, I will turn it over to Sarah to talk about the surface water permit.
My name is Sarah Harvey, and I am the permit reviewer who reviewed the NPDES permit modification request that Rumpke submitted for their discharge permit. To go over the permitting process for surface water, we received the modification request on August 27th, 2018. We public notice received the application on September 7th. Public notice of the draft wastewater discharge permit was then issued on November 2nd. Our comment period is going to be open until April 9th, so we'll accept comments both today and up until the 9th. And then after we go through the comments, the director will take final action on the permit. The Division of Surface Water considers the condition of the receiving stream and how the change will impact Banklet Creek. We also consider the quality of the effluent proposed to be discharged. Rumpke's modification proposes adding monitoring to outfall 007 and moving the coordinates for outfall 004. If approved, the eastern expansion would include adding a larger sedimentation pond at the existing outfall 007. The existing pond at that outfall does not receive any stormwater from disturbed areas. The new pond at 007 will receive stormwater from disturbed areas. So if approved, it will have monitoring added along with limits, and the waste that would come into this pond would not be allowed to, or I'm sorry, the water that comes into this pond would not be allowed to come in contact with any waste. So here's a brief look at what would be going on. So the existing outfall is shown with an arrow pointing to it, and then the new pond would be a little bit north of that. Additionally, the proposal includes moving the outfall location of 004. So currently 004 discharges to an unnamed trib of Banklet Creek. As part of the modification, the facility is requesting to move that to a different unnamed tributary of Banklet Creek. And here's a map showing how the outfall would move. The existing outfall is a little bit further to the north, and the new outfall is proposed to move a little bit down to the south.
Excuse me. Can we move the screen like to one side and turn the projector? Because while we have copies of it here, we can't see the colors. And we're trying to follow along with what's blue and what's red and what's yellow, and we can't see it with the people standing in front of the screen. So if the screen could just be moved to one side, the projector turned, I think everyone can see the color.
Would it be better to ask the presenter to step aside and move?
Or anything, it's just a little difficult to see the color.
If you could step back. Okay. Okay. Michael, can you advance the slides? Okay.
So you can go ahead and advance from there.
Thank you.
So my next steps in the permitting process, Ohio EPA will consider all the comments received today up and through the 9th. The comment period, like I said, will close on the 9th. We may include any changes based on comments received, and then the director will decide whether or not to take final action on the permit. That concludes my portion. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Brad.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Brad Miller with the Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency. We're a local air agency for Ohio EPA and US EPA in southwestern Ohio. We enforce Ohio EPA and US EPA regulations. What I'd like to talk about are the air permits. There are 2 air permits. The first one is an air permit for the Rumpke Sanitary Landfill. It's an administrative modification of their current permit. It establishes air pollution emission limitations and control requirements, and it covers the following sources. It covers the landfill, roadways, and parking areas, the solid waste disposal, and from a solid waste disposal standpoint, we only regulate the particulate emissions coming from it. So like the dust coming from the disposal of the garbage, that's what we regulate from an air standpoint. We also look at the landfill gas generation, and the pollutants involved from those operations would be non-methane organic compounds, methane, particulate emissions, and carbon monoxide. The second permit, as part of the 2 air permits, is to GSF Energy, LLC. It is also an administrative modification, and this would also establish air pollution limitations and control requirements for the 3 landfill gas recovery plants and the landfill flare system. The primary pollutants regulated here would be the non-methane organic compounds, methane, particulate emissions, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and also sulfur dioxide emissions. The current air permit that is established for the facility is held by Rumpke Sanitary Landfill, and it's the existing permit. It covers the landfill roadways and parking areas, the solid waste disposal and landfill gas generation, the 3 landfill gas processing plants, and also the landfill flare system. This current air permit is actually, you can go ahead and switch it. The current permit is being split basically into 2 parts. So GSF Energy and Rumpke have requested that this existing permit be split into 2 separate permits. So we're basically taking 1 permit that's to Rumpke right now, and then it'll be split into a permit for Rumpke and then GSF Energy. There's recent Ohio EPA and US EPA guidance that has allowed this 1 permit to be switched into multiple permits to be issued for these operations, and there will be no increase in the permit allowable emissions from the 1 permit going into the 2 permits. So the permit allowable emissions from an air standpoint will not increase with these changes. So with these 2 new air permits, how the permits would work is Rumpke would be responsible for the landfill, roadways, and parking areas. They'll also be responsible for the solid waste disposal and landfill gas generation. And then GSF Energy would be responsible for the 3 landfill gas recovery plants and the landfill flare system. This is a picture of one of the gas plants that's currently at Rumpke, operated by GSF Energy. This is the gas plant 3, and they have 2 other gas plants on site. With air monitoring, our agency has been doing loop monitoring around the facility since 2009. We measure total volatile organic compounds and methane, and we monitor 18 points around the landfill, which we call our loop monitoring route, and we'll show that to you in just a minute. We also do periodic 24-hour canister samplings. These samplers are sent to a lab and analyzed for approximately 60 volatile organic compounds. This is a picture of what we call our PPB ray. This measures the total volatile organics in the air. So this gives us an instantaneous reading. This is one of the instruments we use during our loop monitoring. This is a picture of the Rumpke Loop. The blue outline is where the Rumpke Loop, where our 18 points are along here. We start off along Struble Road at Colerain, go across Struble to Pottinger. We go up Pottinger to Stout, Stout to Pippin, Pippin up to Buell Road, Buell down to Crest, and then we go Bank Road, Bank to Old Colerain back to Struble and US 27, and then we also have a 1 point down in the Yacht Club off of Dry Ridge Road. That loop was kind of changed just a little bit with the closure of Hughes Road. We used to go down Hughes Road, and we also had a point at Northwest High School, so we had to extend that a little bit to the east. This will be the contact information, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Heather for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you. Actually, that concludes the presentation, and so now we're going to go into the question and answer portion. So at this point, do anybody have any questions? Okay, this gentleman, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. we'll go with this gentleman, and then there was a gentleman over here with his hand up, and then I'll let you know, like, you, and then you're on deck, and we'll go through it that way. So just, you can go ahead and speak up, and I'll repeat the question.
I've lived in Colerain Township since 1969. So as a relatively permanent resident, I'm relatively willing to occupy the landfill hours if you're a fairly good corporate owner, and I'm glad to have them here. When I started driving, though, the quality of the air on the 275 in front of the landfill got to be extremely bad over the summers. So now that I live north of the mill, and with proposed expansion probably within about a half mile of the new operation, my concern is, has the permit tightened up the volatile compounds that they're allowed to release? And are there penalties, what the penalties are for not meeting the permit?
Okay, Brad, can you keep that increase in the volatiles?
Right. Yes, there's a question about the air permit and whether there's an increase in the one of the volatile organic compound emissions. That's something that could contribute to odor, from the landfill. There is no increase in the permit allowable emissions from the landfill. One thing with landfills is when a portion of it, the emissions increase from a portion, they decrease from another portion. They have requirements in the permit to collect a certain amount of the gas. They have to do surface monitoring around the landfill on a quarterly basis to make sure that gas is being collected. So there's regulations from that standpoint to minimize those emissions. What we've done is with this loop monitoring, we've been doing since 2009, and also what we call the toxic canister sampling we've been doing annually. We sent all that information and data we've collected since 2009 to Ohio EPA to review, and they have toxicologists that have reviewed that data, and they've provided the following statement based on the review of the data. They say, based on an ongoing review of the air emission data collected to date, there's no immediate short-term or long-term health threat from the contaminants being measured. Not to say there's not odor, but that is kind of the statement that they have provided us in reviewing the information. In reference to violations, so if a company violates a permit limitation, and this is consistent across all media here, what would happen is they would get a notice of violation. The notice of violation is sent to them, tell them they're in violation, and they have to submit a compliance plan to come back into compliance. At that point, once the violation is resolved, then it's determined by Ohio EPA whether they take further enforcement, which could include findings, either like findings and orders, a consent order, which there could be a monetary penalty also. The big thing, what we're trying to do, any of our agencies, whether it's Ohio EPA or our agency, we want to get the facility back into compliance as soon as possible. But it really varies. I can't give you a straight answer or an exact answer because it really varies on what the violation is, the length of time they violate, how much they exceed the standard.
Thank you. Okay, so this gentleman is next.
A couple of years ago at a public meeting, we were informed that there was underground combustion happening under the landfill. It was, I believe, at the north end of the landfill. I got the impression that nobody understood the nature of the combustion, what it was that was burning, and that there was difficulty in controlling it. There were tarps placed on the land, we were told, in order to cut off oxygen. My question is, has that combustion been controlled, brought to completion? Is that over with, or is it still ongoing?
Okay, so the question is, in the area that there is an underground reaction, is that still going on? And I believe that would be a Michael question.
As far as the north end goes, the reaction is still ongoing. It has pretty much stabilized itself, so we're definitely not seeing the settlements that we did several years ago. Currently, what they have on top of it right now, because you did touch on that they put tarps, they do have 4 to 5 feet of soil on top, and then there's 2 to 3 layers of the plastic liner or the odor control blanket placed over the top of it. That was put on there, one, to help prevent the oxygen from infiltrating, but also to contain the odors and the gas that is there. So as Rumpke pulls that gas It's not escaping to the atmosphere, causing an issue there. But to answer your question, yes, there is still a reaction. But I want to emphasize that it is a reaction. It's not a fire with the sense of flames like you would see in a fireplace or a fire pit.
Did you have a follow-up, sir?
Do you understand the nature of the combustion and why can't you control it?
As far as what the one thing was that started the reaction, there's a lot of theories and there's a lot of studies that's going into not only this landfill but others that have had a similar issue. So there's not the one particular thing that we could definitely point to and say it was this. But to prevent or to help prevent anything like this from happening elsewhere, Rumpke, they monitor the waste loads that are coming in. They can isolate a suspicious load for further analysis or even reject that load if need be. With the north end, it is contained to just the north end. I know we're talking about the expansion to the east of it. There's not going to be anywhere where trash-to-trash contact is going to be. The proposed expansion would not lay over top of the north end. Actually, there is a large berm separating the north end from the eastern expansion. The berm's roughly like 40 feet thick across the top and about 700 feet thick across the bottom. So the reaction area is isolated to that north end.
Thank you. So I'm looking. So this lady here, and is there, okay, and then this lady will be next. Ma'am?
We're looking at the map, you show the expansion, but is from just a regular person's view, where coming across 275, am I going to be able to see that landfill at the new 1,200 elevated feet? When I come down 275, okay, the way it looks like it's coming over to the expansion, it looks like it's going to be hanging on out on 275. I mean, where exactly, what exit coming west on 275, if I'm leaving the old Colerain Fair Mall and I'm traveling back into Colerain Township, I'm on I-275. When I look to my right, how much garbage am I going to be seeing?
Okay, so your question is, at what point on 275 are you going to be able to see the landfill? I don't have a specific location for that because I don't have anything, on any drawing saying that from this point you'll be able to see it. What I can tell you is the highest point of the landfill will be roughly in this area along here. That will be the 1,200 foot elevation. But as far as where you'll see it from 275, I don't have a specific location.
Okay, am I going to be a mile away from it? Because right there's 275.
Right, yes.
So you're saying so when I'm
275
on
here.
275, when I look to my right and I'm coming into Colerain Township, it's going to be a mile away, 2 miles away?
Okay, ma'am, what he's saying is, we do not know. That was not part of our evaluation. But if you have a follow-up question, I can pose it to one of these people. Okay, that's fine. And then this lady and then this gentleman over here.
I actually have two, but I'll start with one. In one very lively hearing that we had several years ago, there were accusations that trash was being brought in the middle of the night from out of state. That's pretty far away out of state. You mentioned in your presentation something about garbage coming from Ohio and then you said out of state. What states are you talking about?
Okay, so the question is, from what states would waste be coming?
I mean, is it New York like it was accused before?
So Rumpke accepts waste, obviously not only from within state, but also out of state. I do know that they're bringing in waste from part of Indiana, I think the northern part of Kentucky. I'd have to look at the annual report to tell you exactly which states. I'm pretty certain that's the three key ones there. As far as waste coming in from New York or the East Coast, no, that's not what's going on.
I have another one on
Okay. So I understand, sir. This gentleman's next, and then we got you, okay? Yes, sir.
How about the human waste coming in from the treatment plants?
Okay, is there, what, are you asking if they are accepting sewage
Well, I don't know
sludge?
how much they're accepting already.
Okay, so is there a question associated?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your,
One more statement here.
okay,
Got one-
if you have, okay, I understand that folks have statements and they have comments that they want to make on the official public record. That's what, really, I want to get to that point. That's when we have the hearing, okay? That's when the court reporter will be taking your comment on the official public record. So if you have a question, then we'll try to answer it. Otherwise, we're going to move through the questions so that we can get to the hearing so that you all can be, that can be captured, okay? So do you have a question?
How many tons of sludge they bring? I don't know.
Do we know?
Okay, so back to your original comment about human waste. I can tell you that Rumpke does not accept raw sewage. What they can accept is dewatered wastewater treatment plant sludge, and that has gone through the treatment plant process. As far as the exact tonnage, I don't know off the top of my head. That's something that I have to look at the annual report to be able to get you an accurate number on.
Okay. Now we have this gentleman back here.
Yeah, I got a two-part question for you. I live right next to Cripple Creek Park. My neighborhood is as close to you as anybody else is close. What I want to know is, I've been there 40-something years. The last time you expanded, every afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, boom, an outhouse and shit. You wouldn't have to excavate. Are you going to do that again this time? You cracked my foundation last time. The second question now, let me get the second question to you. I look out my front window now, I look in the window, and I watch trucks going across Rumpke now. You're going to be 150 feet higher than that? You're going to block out the sun for me?
Okay. I'm going to take the blasting question because Ohio EPA does not regulate blasting. That's one of the things that we do not have the authority to consider. That is part of Department of Natural Resources.
So they can blast all they want.
No, that's not what I said. That's regulated by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Okay, this lady and then this gentleman back here in the green. So the lady in the green, then the gentleman in the green.
Given that the reaction is not under control yet, what steps are proposed to prevent that from occurring under any expansion?
Okay, so the question was, well, I'm going to give it to Michael, so I'll let him restate it.
Okay, so you're asking again, what steps are going to be taken so that the reaction doesn't spread to the...
Not spread, but since we don't know what the reaction is, how do we prevent it from starting anew? I'm not talking about spreading, because I understand that you will have physical
Yes.
barriers, but since we don't know the nature of the reaction that's occurring, I'm just concerned that essentially we're just building a second one.
Okay, so as to what steps will be taken so that a separate or another reaction won't happen in the proposed expansion. Again, it's going to begin with monitoring from the facility as far as watching the truckloads come in. I mentioned before that they do random inspections of the truckloads. They can, they're looking for suspicious loads. I don't have a specific example, but if something looks suspicious, they do have the ability to, isolate that off the side, do some further, analysis of it, and reject that load if possible. Additionally, the operators on the landfill that is running the equipment, they are watching the trash. So, if something jumps out at them, I think recently they had a barrel that one of the operators spotted, and they were able to, look at that, figure out what was in it, and, remove that from the working phase so it wasn't disposed of in the landfill itself. So that's where, the first steps are going to be at.
Okay, we'll get back around, but I want to try to give everyone an opportunity to ask one question and a follow-up first. So this gentleman is next.
I go to St. John the Baptist Church on Dry Ridge Road. Every other Sunday, it's so god-awful stinking smell coming through there. You can't even breathe till you get to the church. And I was just wondering, how much of that garbage is from out of state, and percentage-wise?
Again, I don't have these numbers off the top of my head.
You should have that number off the top of your head, because this is a meeting about this. You should be studying this, you should know it.
Oh, I understand, sir, but unfortunately, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head to be able to give you that. I can find these numbers for you every year.
It should be brought out in this meeting. You people should have the ability to ask you questions like that. You come up with it.
Okay, and you can ask us, and again, for the public hearing, you can state that on the public record. If you would like, I can get your contact information and we can talk about this. Like I said, I don't have that information with me today. I can find that information out. Every year...
You're doing a sorry operation of your job.
Okay, every year they provide an annual report that provides these numbers. And this year's annual report is actually is due April 1st.
I don't have time to keep up with all this. I come to this meeting to find out about something. You have given me absolutely no answer.
Okay. A couple questions have come up about out-of-state waste, and we can get the numbers for you, but basically the Supreme Court has determined that states cannot regulate out-of-state waste. So
I'm not asking you to regulate. I'm asking you just to take count of what's coming into that dump, so we know we're not supplying garbage for place for the whole nation.
okay. That would be a great comment for you to make on the official public record.
I can't even get my question yet, so why would I go through all that?
Okay.
Red.
Sir, back here in the plaid. Yes.
Yeah, my brother had a local restaurant here 15 months ago from an employee of Rumpke that they had purchased property all the way north of Kemper Road and for the possible future expansion, even beyond the existing Bank Road, the north expansion that we're proposing here tonight. And I was just curious, how close, I live on Stony Road, and it's Kemper Road right there. And I nightly, just to answer the question is really, I drive from work nightly off 27 north of Kemper Road. And from Struble Road to Kemper, I smell nightly. I mean, not a night goes by, I do not smell it. And I've lived there for 6 months now. And I'm a little concerned about purchasing property on Stone Mill Road. As far as resale, I'm really guilty about that. But what my brother told me after I bought this house, he said to me, and he was up at Panera restaurant here in Colerain Township, and he said there was an employee that worked presently for Rumpke sitting at a table or two over. And they said, from a employee, my brother overheard it, that Rumpke has purchased property all the way to Kemper Road with the proposed expansion, north expansion, beyond the present Bank Road. And being a resident of Stony Mill, I was a little concerned about Rumpke being so close with the traffic, construction traffic going down Kemper, and what kind of access they would have. And I was wondering, to take back to the man's question in the green about the smell. I'll be honest with you, I know they said the smell goes south towards Struble, but I just smelled it on Struble the other night. Another thing about the smell is your present 300 acres right now. If you're proposing another 250, if they can't control the smell at 300 acres, what can they do if they implemented anything to control the smell at double the acres?
Oh, okay, sir, it seems like we've got... It sounds like that you wanted to know, okay? Really, I want to get around to everybody, but let's try to break this down a little bit. Number one, it sounds like you want to know if we are aware whether the facility has purchased additional land. Is that is that correct? Okay, are we aware?
And how far north? I mean, right now they're proposing to bank road.
Okay, well, hang on, just a moment.
Okay, as far as properties that Rumpke has purchased, I don't know about any specific properties that you're referring to. I can say as far as, future expansion-wise, currently the only permit application that Ohio EPA has in-house for solid waste is this proposed eastern expansion. So anything beyond that would just be speculation. So I don't know about that. And then I think your other question was touching on the odors. Managing the odors. So what?
It's night. Yeah. I tried this to the after I come from work, and from Struble Road, you get off Colerain. You don't hit it till you hit about Struble, and you know the smell. It's actually changed. It used to smell like a perfume dumpster, like they sprayed Febreze, and that even smells worse than this garbage. The perfume they put on it, you know it right away. And even a friend of mine from Chicago came down after I bought this house, and they were staying with me for a couple days. And I gave them directions to the house. This is the first time they had visited. And the first thing they said to me when they came, I greeted them at the door, it was nighttime when they arrived, so they didn't see the landfill, the mountain. But they said to me, the minute they greeted the door, "What is that smell coming here?" It smelled really bad. And I was a little ashamed and embarrassed. I knew what it was. Of course, I said we have a landfill close by. But, I mean, at 300 acres, your present acreage, it smells nightly. And you're proposing to the crowd here tonight this double and possibly triple. I heard something even close to 1,000 acres in that area. Shit. I mean, it's going to stink like hell. And how?
Okay, sir. We've got a room full of people that I would like to get to their questions. I understand that you're concerned about the odor. Let's let Michael answer this question, and then I'm going to move to this gentleman, and we'll continue around the room.
Okay, so as far as odors, Rumpke minimizes odors through operational practices such as applying daily cover, quickly burying, especially odorous loads, and also using the deodorizer system. What they also use is a physical barrier in the odor control blanket that's located over the north end. And odor complaints, Rumpke and the health department both respond to the odor complaints to try to better identify any potential issues and try to make adjustments to the current operations as need be to try to minimize those odors.
Okay, this gentleman over here.
My name is Apple. I've been here 50 years too. I never thought that a lot of the residents that live on different roads, and I think back to my initial question to you is this. You're putting on the table today the issue of height of the spill down the road years ago. With the technology, you certainly know the acreage of the expansion, and you know the depth that they're asking for. That equates in cubic feet of dirt. You take all that out, and then you can calculate how much fill you get back into that. But you're the person who's concerned about the visual aspect of this hill. And it will take a while before that hits the grade. Why can't, I'm sure your technology and computer guys up in Columbus certainly have the capability to calculate that, and then you can tell these people and give them intelligent answers. That's why I think people talk for 10 minutes, because they're just not seeing the basics of the whole problem. We have a visual problem, we have this odor problem. I'm more about the visual, and you have the capability of answering that question.
Okay, the public comment period closes on April 9th. For questions that we do not have the answers for tonight, we will do the best that we can to get back in touch with people. We will be taking a break between the question and answer period and the public hearing so that we can try to make sure we have your contact information, and we will do our best to follow up. Yes, sir. I've got this gentleman and then this lady here back in the opera.
I have a question. You're showing us 275 in the yellow line. Sitting back here, that looks like a football field to me. It's not. How many feet from 275 to that yellow line? Is that 1,000 feet?
Yeah, so 275 is here, the proposed expansion's here, you're talking about this space right in here. That is roughly 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet. I can't see the line there. There's 1,000 feet.
Yeah, roughly 1,000 feet.
1,250 feet up.
As far as the height of the expansion,
That's what you're asking.
this area up here would be the highest point of the landfill. Now, if you're asking like from the highest point to here, I could guess maybe 2,000 feet, just eyeballing it. That'd be my best guess for you.
Okay.
Okay, with the lady in the aqua here,
I was told that when we experience these smells, that we should call a hotline with the EPA, Southwestern Ohio, and report it. I've done that many, many times. At what point does something get done and what action is taken? How many people have to complain before something's actually done something?
Okay, right now there's two agencies you call. So back in I was in 2000, about 2008, 2007. There were a couple agencies involved in responding to Rumpke. Three agents really. It's Ohio EPA, it's our agency, the Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency, and also Hamilton County Public Health. Those are the three agencies that respond. In around 2007, 2008, Colerain Township approached Hamilton County Public Health. They put a group together to look at responding to complaints. The township at that time felt there was not a quick enough response. Our agency had a 24-hour hotline call-in system that people could call the number. That's the 946-777 number that you're discussing. So what we did at that point was we used that number, and then also the health department, their number. They have a number that you can call also to report the complaints. So a couple things happen when you call in the complaints. The health department or our agency respond. In looking at kind of some of the health department's data for the last 6 months, they've done around 55 investigations. So there are investigations and follow-up to the complaints. There's reports generated, so we can provide that information. If you want to get your contact information, we can provide report summaries. The health department puts together a monthly report on their on investigations that they do, inspections they do. So there is follow-up being done. If you see during the break, you can see me, and we can go ahead and get your contact information and get you that information.
okay, we've got a bunch of, I see a lot of hands go up. I'm going to try to get to the folks who have not asked your question first, okay? And then I'll be back around. There's a gentleman in the back with the tie, and then this gentleman here in the blue.
Good evening. In connection with the reaction that you mentioned this evening, are there any other landfill facilities under the supervision of the Ohio EPA or the Southwestern Ohio Quality Agency that have a similar ongoing reaction?
Okay, so the question is, are there any other landfills in Ohio and specifically southwestern Ohio that have a similar reaction?
To simply answer your question, yes. I can tell you that Stony Hollow landfill up near Dayton has a reaction there. I know there's one on the east side of the state. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there are a few within Ohio that Ohio EPA would inspect that have reactions going on.
Did you have a follow-up?
So with your experience then, there's nothing you can do to cease or subside the reaction?
So with these reactions, not all of them are exactly the same, and the agency along with the landfills are learning from each other's experiences. The one I think over on the eastern part of the state was probably one of the first ones, and then I think Rumpke may have been the second one. And what we have learned on the eastern side of the state, we turned around and applied it to Rumpke, and some things have worked out, some things maybe not quite so much, but as an agency we have learned from that. When Stony Hollow had theirs a few years back, after Rumpke, one of the things that the agency was telling them was, this is what we've learned at Rumpke. This is what's going to happen. This is the steps Rumpke has taken and has worked. Now, whether or not these other landfills choose to accept that advice, that's up to them. But, as an agency as a whole, we are learning from these experiences.
Okay, so we've got,
Thank you. So
we've-
to answer the young lady in Green's question, I think the answer is based upon your experience, the answer is no. There's nothing that we can do in the expansion or in the current
Actually,
that will cease or stop an additional reaction. There's nothing we can do.
that is actually not what he said. If that's a comment that you want to make on the record, you can do so. We have this gentleman here, and then the lady in the green next to him, and then the lady in the denim coat in front of her.
I've learned that there's 5 landfills in Ohio that are burning right now, have the same problem. And the federal EPA doesn't have a real good solution to it. They're studying it also. And because across the country, they have the same problem. And there's one place in particular where it's burning toward radioactively, so it's a cute little situation. My question is the air monitoring that's going to go on. You talk about the primary air pollutants you're measuring, and what are the non-methane organics that you're talking about? Are these volatile organics? Are they chlorinated organics? There's a lot of plastic in that landfill that it's heating, it's giving off chlorinated gas, and a lot of that chlorinated gas could probably be toxic. And do we measure for toxins?
Okay, so a couple things. Are you talking about the reaction area or just the normal landfill?
Reaction area.
The reaction area, okay.
That's
So
my concern because it's on fire.
right, so when the reaction area occurred, we did a lot of air monitoring in that area. We actually took samples from the landfill gas wells at that point. So there's a US EPA method for air toxics that was used to measure those volatile organic compounds. There's a little over 60 of them. I can get you the list. If you give me your information, we can give you results. I can show you what the results were from that original data. We collected on-site data, and then we also collected off-site data. We have canister sampling, both 24-hour canister sampling and instantaneous we took during the height of the reaction before they had the odor control blanket covering a lot of the area. So that was probably the highest concentrations we were seeing off-site. We also, for 6 months, set up an air toxics monitoring site that ran, I think, once every 12 days. It was set up at Bank and Hughes down in that area where we had the strongest odors. We were collecting samples down there, so I can provide you a summary of all that data. So we do, but some of them are chlorinated compounds that we measure for. Some of them aren't. There's a whole variety of 60 of them, but I'd be more than happy during the break if you get your information. I can provide you, the list of those specific compounds, air monitoring data that we've done in the past. For that reaction area.
And also the stack that comes off the burning, the landfill flare gas, is that monitored for toxins?
No, that landfill flare, no, that is not monitored. Where you see the blue flame and all that, right, that is not monitored for dioxins. There's no limitations for dioxins for that, correct, and it is not measured.
It should be because.
Okay, that might be something you want to comment during the public comment portion of this hearing. That would be a good comment to provide, during that you think that should be measured.
Okay, lady in the olive. Ma'am, oh, I'm sorry, did you?
Me?
You had raised your hand and I thought that.
Me?
Yes.
I'm in green.
Okay, olive green, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm confused. Yeah. Hi everyone, I am new Colerain. I'm a mother. I have a 2-year-old toddler. I live less than a mile from the current dump. It gets so bad some days I can't even take my kid out to play in the yard, and it's pretty disappointing. And I hope you take our passionate expressions because we care. This is our home. And I understand you guys can look at PowerPoints and presentations and look at paper, but I hope you are taking an impact view and having empathy with us because this is our home. My question, and I don't think it was ever answered by the gentleman in the back, was what are we doing about the odor? That is a very valid concern. And is there any, as a mom to a young child, I'm looking at, should I move? I don't know if I should raise my kid here because it's going to be restricted to the dump. Is there anything, precautions being taken towards people who have young families, the health factors this might pose into the air? Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the question is odor control and what sensitive populations are taken into consideration.
Again, with the odors, Rumpke utilizes operational practices to minimize the odors, including daily cover, burying waste,
It doesn't work.
Okay, and utilizing the deodorizer system. They also use the physical barrier and odor control blanket.
So would that be amplified times a million to take, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that you're talking about because the landfill's getting bigger, you're thinking that the odors will be worse.
Yes.
So, again, not only with the items I just mentioned, something else Rumpke does operationally is try to minimize the area of the open working face where the trucks come in and actually dump the waste. So they try to keep that as small as they can. However, with the size of Rumpke and the amount of trucks coming in, it is probably a fairly large footprint compared to some smaller landfills. But again, as they're filling any area that is not going to be receiving waste within 24 hours, I believe it is, they actually will cover that up with some sort of daily cover, whether that's soil or tarps or something other than that. So, but again, those items as far as daily cover is something that we'd look at and would have to approve.
So would the odorizers be amplified as well then to make up for the
So
area?
with the deodorizer system that they have, some people refer to that as like the Febreze smell or something. So Rumpke, they try to find that fine balance between just the right amount of deodorizer, not enough, not too much. Because they do understand that some people are very sensitive to the deodorizer and they have received odor complaints about that specifically. But at the same time, like they dial that way down, then odor complaints for the garbage comes up. So for Rumpke's standpoint, it is a delicate balancing act. So,
And what about health statistics for families?
I don't have anything on that.
Well, I think what I was getting to, when they look at the permit limits and when they look at what we have to take into consideration, US EPA has done a number of studies and they will give us guidance regarding the most vulnerable populations. So old people, young people, people with chronic conditions. I don't know, Brad, can you, I don't want to like just jump to you here. Can you talk a little bit about some of the ways that those are set, or some of the way US EPA will determine those?
Yeah, so from the air permit standpoint, some of the federal regulations that we enforce and the Ohio EPA regulations, so the federal regulations are set, a couple of them are for like the gas collection control system. They have to meet certain federal requirements for the gas collection and control system. So when those standards are set by US EPA, they take into account, right, what they call kind of maybe like the sensitive groups. So sensitive groups are elderly, are children. So when they develop those regulations, they take those things into account to try to develop those regulations. So that is kind of part of setting the standards. So when Rumpke, so from like the gas collection standpoint, which I'm more familiar with, they have certain requirements where they quarterly have to scan with an instrument to check for the higher concentrations. They see an excessive concentration, then it puts into place a timeline. For example, there's a 500 part per million limitation on methane. If they see that above that when they do this quarterly scan in the landfill, they have to do an investigation to determine whether that gas collection system is properly collecting that gas. Maybe it's become plugged, so they do an investigation and then have to fix that area of it or determine what's going on. They may have to put a new well in to collect that gas if they're seeing those excess concentrations. So that would be kind of an example of where this federal regulation requires that type of thing. We've talked about well monitoring. They have to monitor temperature right now. They have to monitor either nitrogen or oxygen in those wells. So that's part of that federal rule. So these federal rules are kind of, and state rules are kind of written to, you basically look at the health data, and then there's something called national ambient air quality standards that are out there also, but they're basically health-based standards. So they kind of work from that, and then they set these standards, and then you take that standard and then set kind of operational requirements. So if you look at the air permit, there'll be operational restrictions in there that they have to do, and then there's monitoring and record keeping, reporting, and then there's test methods which show what you have to do. So for the gas plant, for example, they have to do actual testing where we measure the air contaminants coming out of the gas plant, where they process the landfill gas. So, I mean, that's in a nutshell, but be more happy to talk to you more during the break if you have further questions.
Okay, thank you. And we have the lady in the denim coat.
Okay, so on this latest PowerPoint slide, the Rumpke Loop, okay, are there actually monitors at points around that, or is just that how far you monitor? And why does the yacht club get their own little
Okay, so what we so that loop was created when we had the reaction back in 2009. We started the loop monitoring, and what we do is we selected and this is in consultation with Ohio EPA and US EPA. So when this reaction occurred, there was a Team Rumpke that was formed, so there were multiple parties involved. So it was just not our agency. Ohio EPA was involved, US EPA, and what we determine is, so what we do is we have 18 points. So we'll go to that. We'll drive to that point. And then once our instrument stabilizes, we'll take a reading at that point.
So there's not an actual monitor there?
Right.
You go to 18
Correct, yeah, with that
points
portable instrument, if you go to that portable instrument, so
you
that
go
portable.
to those 18 points?
Correct, and then take it, so a couple things is when we used to go down Hughes Road, we have some concerns about Northwest High School, that we were not going to Northwest High School. So before we changed and modified our loop, we would actually go to Northwest High School. There was a lot of concern in the yacht club on Dry Ridge Road, so we extended our loop out to kind of capture that. So we've modified this loop over time to hit points where we know there was levels of concern to make sure we were capturing those points during that loop monitoring.
If you get a high reading at a certain point, do you expand your loop?
Right, okay, so
Is
what?
this always expanding or changing?
So when we created. Oh, sorry about that. So her question, so her question is about, with our loop monitoring, what happens when we see high concentrations? So when we had this reaction first occurred, the group with US EPA, what US EPA recommended is, if we see a concentration of 500 parts per billion on our instrument, and we see that for 1 minute at any one of those locations, we will take a canister sample. So what the canister sample allows us to do, back to the one guy's question, was it allows us to then identify specific compounds. So this, you can go back that in, the PPB array only tells us the total organics. What we really need to know then is that point is, what are the specific compounds that is, maybe causing the odor, or what those specific compounds. So we have actually a canister. We would take an instantaneous sample right away, take that instantaneous sample, and then that has to go off to a lab to be analyzed. We don't have equipment where we can analyze for all those organics right there on the spot. So we take an instantaneous canister sample, send that canister sample to a lab, and then to look at those organics. And all that data is collected and then forwarded to Ohio EPA's toxicologists for their review, because they're the health officials that can make a determination on what the various concentrations mean. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
The first part,
Okay.
why did the yacht club get their own loop?
Again, because
they're far out of the loop.
Right, because we got a lot of complaints in that area, so we actually extended the loop down to the yacht club. So we had a lot of complaints in that area, so we extended the loop. It's been a while back, but we extended the loop down there. So it's just a little bit further drive down for us, but we wanted to capture that area. Just like I said with Northwest High School, we had concerns at Northwest High School, so we expanded our loop out in that area. Prior to our new expansion, we were actually driving out to Northwest High School, checking the concentrations there due to the concern from, the school at that point, and that was a while back.
Okay, so I've got the lady with the pin, the gentleman in the green, and then the other lady in the green.
Okay, I moved to Colerain in '67, and we were out in the country. And in the '70s, you could still drive down Colerain Avenue and look across the valley. It was a valley. And you could see Mr. Rumpke's house over on Hughes Road from across the valley. He was putting garbage in his backyard then. But that's just how much garbage we have accumulated since the '70s. that mountain and now an expansion, and I do believe there will be a northern expansion. One of the last hearings I came to, an independent scientist, several independent scientists were talking about the groundwater, and nobody could give them an answer as to the quality of the groundwater. That's important, and it's also important because we're still hearing, just recently, about 6 months ago, they're finding traces of the uranium in the groundwater out by Fernald. So we lived through the Fernald thing too, and my house happened to have been in one of the target areas for the Fernald radius. So I would like to know about the groundwater. Is there any definite answer as to its quality? Is it good water? Is it full of garbage and sewage? Is it full of what?
Okay, so the question is groundwater in the area affected by the landfill?
As far as groundwater goes, as far as their permit application, I mean, they do have groundwater monitoring that they do. Obviously, they are doing groundwater monitoring. Their latest sampling event was last month, which we won't have the results back from that for a while. Prior to that, the previous sampling event was September 2018. A groundwater specialist out of our group, or out of the agency, actually reviews that information. So I won't be able to answer your specific questions about groundwater. I can take your...
Do you know what he found in September?
So the results came back in, I think, November, and from my best I can remember, there weren't any issues with the groundwater, but I would be more than glad to follow up with you, after I talk again to one of the groundwater specialists, or I can even share your contact information with them, and you guys can talk about that if you'd like.
It's just really always been tough to get a definitive answer, and about anything, even for all. So that's something I think all of us want, and especially because of people here now have small children.
Right.
People need to know that it's safe where they live.
Right. Like I said, as far as I can remember, there were no violations associated with the groundwater. But again, I'm not the one who reviewed that information, so I wouldn't know the specific details of that. But we can find out.
Did you have a follow-up question? Ma'am, did you have? Okay. We have a number of other questions. I'm going to go with this gentleman, and then this lady in the green, and then this gentleman. We will get to everybody. I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm sorry if I'm looking somewhere else and I do not see you. I will, folks, I'm really sorry. We do want to get to everybody. So let's get through these three, and then I swear I will focus on this area over here. Okay, so the next one is this gentleman in the back. No, I'm sorry, sir, you.
I just want to ask you earlier, I want to get this straight on here. Am I reading this correctly, that you want to go 142 feet higher than you are now? That's 7 more stories up.
Okay, you're asking if that's something that Rumpke has requested, because this is, Ohio EPA has reviewed their permit. So I'm going to let Michael answer that one.
Am I looking at that right, another 142 feet higher?
So currently the landfill's elevation is approximately 1058 feet above mean sea level. They are currently permitted for a maximum elevation of 1074 feet. And the proposed expansion that they're asking for would be up to 1,200 feet. Looking at this drawing here, right now the highest point that they're permitted for is down in the southern expansion area. So this would be the part right now that they could build up to 1074 feet. Again, the high point in the proposed expansion would be this area here. So when it comes to the southern expansion, or the existing landfill compared to the proposed eastern expansion, you have a high point. As you're coming across the east, there'll actually be a little bit of a valley. And then once it gets over here toward towards the proposed expansion, this area will start kind of going up a little bit until it gets to the high point up here.
So the way I understand it is we've lost any fight on the expansion, that's gone. We've lost any fight on the stink, we just gotta live with it. The one thing we can fight on, what I've been told, is the height and what goes in it.
So
Find out how to fight that.
as far as the height of the landfill, there isn't a specific law restricting the height of the landfill. For the proposed expansion, Rumpke proposed the heights and the dimensions of the landfill. Now there is siting criteria and setback requirements that the facility will have to comply with. And I mean, these are numbers as far as like being 1,000 feet away from like a natural area, state preserves, federal preserves. There's certain requirements in rule that they would have to comply to that. And furthermore, they have to be able to show a stable design. So, you know, it's not like they could have a little tiny footprint and be extremely tall. It'd have to be a stable design too.
Okay, we've got this lady, and then this gentleman, and then folks over here. And so I'll go with you, and then you, okay? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, so you're next.
Okay, just two quick questions. One is the standards by which you evaluate pollution, air quality, water control, water quality, etc. Are those reflective of the fact that this landfill sits in a highly populated area? Would the same standards apply if this landfill were in the middle of, the middle of rural Ohio? Is there adjustment for the fact that you're basically a facility surrounded by a actually the second most populous township in the state? Is there?
Yeah, it's a good question.
As far as the solid waste requirements, yes, Rumpke is around a very large population. They would be under the same requirements as a landfill that would be way out in the country somewhere with not very many people around it. They would still be required to have the liner system, the cap system. Once it's all said and done, they would still have the same setbacks that Rumpke would be subjected to now. As far as surface water and air, I can let Brad and Sarah talk about that.
Okay, from an air standpoint, the regulations are the same across the state of Ohio, except in some larger urban areas, they're actually more restrictive. What US EPA sets is what they call national ambient air quality standards. And our agency actually does air monitoring for the criteria pollutants. There are certain criteria pollutants that we monitor for. If you do not meet that standard, you're in non-attainment. So based on how much emissions you're putting out, there could be more restrictive requirements for something in our area. So the Hamilton County area, one of the pollutants we're non-attainment for is ozone. So ozone is, you basically have volatile organic compound emissions and nitrogen oxide emissions that combine in the presence of sunlight to create ozone. Our area is non-attainment for that standard. Hamilton County, Butler, Warren, Claremont, all four of those counties are non-attainment. So if a new source goes in and they're over certain levels for nitrogen oxide emissions, volatile organic compounds, there'll be more restrictive limits for them. So that's, in some cases, rural areas may have less restrictions along those lines, but like these federal rules for the landfills, there's federal regulations for the landfills, they're the same no matter where that landfill is located in the state. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Is that okay? Sarah.
So for the surface water discharge permit, we consider the receiving stream that the ponds will be discharging to. Streams will have a water use designation, and that's written in rules. So to answer your question about being in Hamilton County versus out in the middle of nowhere, it's not necessarily dependent on what the population is around it. It's dependent on what the designated water use is of the receiving stream. So it could be possible that different permits for landfills would have different limits in it, but it's reflective of the receiving stream. Does that answer? Okay.
Then my second question, in your line of endeavor that the landfill is, the operators of the landfill are the people doing the monitoring of the operations of the landfill?
Okay, so the question is it customary for the permit holder to also submit reports or to monitor themselves?
Rumpke does conduct the daily inspections and fill out the daily forms, like what I talked about in my presentation. However, they're not the only agency that is doing inspections and monitoring at the facility. Hamilton County Public Health, they conduct routine unannounced inspections of the landfill. I don't know how many they've done this year, but they've been out several times. Ohio EPA will come down and do inspections, sometimes announced, sometimes unannounced. So hopefully this answers your question on that.
It does.
But it's not just Rumpke, looking at the landfill and saying everything's okay. There's other agencies, Ohio EPA, Hamilton County Public Health, that's coming down and looking.
And one last thing, is the smell. Now, I know you can measure the organic compounds and all of those scientific words, but is smell a criteria by which you will evaluate whether this expansion is granted or not?
So odors are a very subjective issue and something that's yes, it's subjective and it's very difficult to quantify. It's something that we look at a little bit, but
Did you all visit you go there?
Yes, actually I was down last week. Last Wednesday I was down, and prior to that I was down 2 weeks ago. Before that, as far as Brad and Sarah, I'm sure they've been down recently too.
That's important because this is not as straightforward as did we do our paperwork properly?
Right.
It's a little big. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sir, you, and then this lady over here.
Do you monitor and check for mercury presence in the water springs?
Okay, the question is mercury one of the materials that is being sampled for?
All right. I want to double check. I was pretty sure it was in there, but it is in there. It is one of the things that they have to monitor for. They will do, on their existing outfalls, so even the ones that are there right now, they do semi-annual monitoring twice a year. And that will carry over into the new permit for all the new monitoring we'd be adding. So they do monitor for that in their discharge.
Twice a year?
And then they submit that data to us and we review it during their permit renewal.
They haul 120 tons a day of sludge out of the landfill that has mercury in it.
None of the stormwater that falls on that, anything that comes in like that, none of that is allowed to discharge out any of their said ponds.
So all this rain isn't dispersing that everywhere?
No.
Because I know Kate, you had water to it because it's sludgy here.
Right, so all of that will drain into the landfill and be managed as leachate. The said ponds are not allowed to discharge anything like that, which is why we put this monitoring in here to make sure that nothing's getting out into the said pond that shouldn't be getting out there.
All right, so we have this lady here, over here. I'm sorry, just like, please, if everyone can be really quiet, 'cause some of us have, like, I have a booming voice, but this lady we need to be a little bit more quiet. I'm happy to restate the questions. I'll walk this out to make it easier.
I went on a tour of the dump about 5 or 6 years ago, and we were told that the new land had to be approved for dumping. So they had to do all these soil tests and all this. So has that been done? Has it been approved, and who approves it?
Yes, the facility has already done the investigatory work on the proposed expansion. I believe that was something that the folks in our groundwater would look at, so I don't have the specific details on that.
So we don't know if this has been approved yet?
Yes, they.
Who approved it? EPA?
Well, yeah, I mean, the groundwater folks will looked at it, done the. Okay, so we have a division of groundwater geologists that look at like the subsurface, the groundwater, the soil beneath it.
And are they part of the EPA?
Yes, yeah, they're just, so I'm in solid waste. Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm in the solid waste group. Sarah's in a surface water group, so it's a separate division. These folks would be part of the groundwater or the geologist as part of our group. So.
My other question is, if the retention pond is running into that Banquet Creek, where does the creek run into?
We don't have a map that zoomed out far enough in the presentation, but Banquet Creek runs north and it meets up with the Great Miami River.
Which is it? Okay. So now I'm looking for other questions out here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was looking over the agenda this evening, and it said that this is a meeting to permit a draft expansion. And I was just wondering why Rumpke and GSF are splitting it. What's the advantage for them to split an air permit?
There's been new, guidance from US EPA that allows facilities. So what happens is GSF actually operates the gas recovery plant. So the picture of the gas recovery plant I showed you, that is actually operated by GSF. They control that operation and operate the gas plant. So the landfill gas comes from Rumpke to GSF Energy. They process the gas and then it goes back into the natural gas. It goes into the natural gas pipeline. So what had happened was US EPA put out new guidance that said if you have two facilities that are kind of together like that under common control, they're actually, if the air pollution control activities are not controlled by Rumpke, so Rumpke does not control GSF Energy and how they comply with their permits, you can separate that out. So there's a recent US EPA guidance for landfill, a similar situation in Pennsylvania. So Rumpke and GSF Energy submitted letters to Ohio EPA requesting that the permits be split out. So it's more the responsibility of who's responsible for each portions of the permit. So Rumpke is now, instead of being responsible for the gas plants that GSF operates, GSF is now responsible. So if there's a violation, depending on whose permit it is, then notice of violation might go to GSF, it might go to Rumpke. So based on those two permits.
Rumpke owns it. GSF is
Okay.
only a contractor for Rumpke, so we're allowed to.
Second question from this lady.
Yes, so to whose advantage is it to have two permits? Is it Rumpke's advantage? Is it the township's advantage? Is it the EPA's advantage? I'm just wondering why this comes into play.
The requirements are the same. The requirements are the same. So we're basically taking having the requirements in one permit, splitting them into two permits. So there's no advantage from our agency. There are two permits, and then we will do inspections of both facilities to ensure they're in compliance with the requirements.
Okay, this lady has not asked a question before, and then this gentleman back here, and then, sir, you've had a couple questions, but then we'll go back to you, okay?
So I believe you were saying that since GSF is kind of separated off from Rumpke, then that means they're responsible. So does that mean if GSF goes bankrupt or has problems or pulls out, then we're all stuck with it because Rumpke's been, eliminated from the permit and they're not responsible for any of the activities?
No. So in both permits, the federal regulations require that you reduce, and we talked about somebody mentioned non-methane organic compounds. The federal regulations require that you reduce the non-methane organic compounds by 98% from the processing of the gas. So that shows up in both Rumpke's permit and GSF. So that is a requirement that's in both permits. So if GSF would, let's say, basically no longer operated, Rumpke would still be required to put some type of control system in to reduce those emissions by 98%, which federal rule requires.
So do we still, so if GSF gets dinged with 7 violations and Rumpke gets dinged with 2 or 3, and the limit is 10 per entity, doesn't that mean Rumpke gets the operation, the total operation violations will be reduced so that the appropriate corrective actions aren't being done?
Right. So if you violate a rule, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 rule, 2 rules, or 3 rules. So what we do is you send a notice of violation. So if Rumpke violates the rule, they're going to get a notice of violation. If GFS does, they get it, and that goes down to those go down separate paths.
Fines go up with each violation if you repeatedly have violations, too much methane, too much, you know, the higher up it goes, I thought it was a progressive scale of punishment.
It can't.
So it gets them out having to pay the progressive scale of penalties, if those are found. I just don't see the logic in separating except for that purpose.
Basically, the guidance allows them to do it. So let's say what could happen with the 98%, that's in both permits. So if Rumpke violates that or GSF, they're both going to get a notice of violation, so they're both responsible. So for example, there's limitations on the gas plants. If they exceed one of those limitations, GSF, basically they're operating the plant, they're going to get the notice of violation for that.
I had another question.
Okay, we're going to,
It's my follow-up. I mean, the follow-up question is, each permit usually gets its own public hearing so that you don't have to feel so rushed and pushing people off of getting answers. To whose benefit was it for you guys to take 4 permits, put it in 1 hearing, so you have to rush through everybody? I mean, do you benefit? I guess that's less time for you. Rumpke, that's less time for them.
Okay, so your question, ma'am, your question,
all the permits into 1 hearing instead of letting more people come out and voice their concerns.
Okay. We've done, for many years, we have held permit hearings for facilities like this, and many times we hear from people, I'm here to talk about the air permit. And we have to say, this is the solid waste expansion permit. So we've actually heard from people in this community who have said, why don't you bring everybody out here who is working on the expansion at the same time so that we can ask these questions? The last thing I want to do is to rush people, but I do want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask their questions. So we will go around the room again. We've received 15 or 16 cards from people who want to testify on the official public record. I would like to give everybody 5 minutes to testify, which is longer than you think when you're actually speaking, and that's going to add up. So what we're trying to do is to answer the questions that we can here, so that if people want to speak to that on the official public record, that they can. If you would rather have this broken down and to have 4 separate hearings on 4 separate evenings, then please put that on the official public record, and we will take it into consideration if we're in this area for another hearing like this. Okay, so this gentleman here in the blue.
Yeah, I heard some discussion about, was it the air sealing running out? Is that the permitted height you're referring to, or is there just really a limitation on how high you can stack it?
Okay, this would be a Michael question. You mean airspace?
And so you're talking about the airspace as to how high it can go, or?
Well, I heard you refer to airspace when his airspace runs out. Is that in reference to his authorized elevation you can stack it to, or are you referring to
Go to the cross section.
Okay, so right now, Rumpke's current elevation of the landfill is approximately 1058, Okay, so
1070 plus is his airspace. Is that what you're talking
Right,
about?
Rumpke is permitted for a certain level or a certain height that they can put the waste in right now, and all that adds up to a certain volume, which is 91 million cubic yards of airspace that they are permitted for. So once they reach that maximum elevation and fill the landfill, if they don't have any other space, then they will not be able to accept more waste. So that's that's why they're coming in with this proposed expansion, trying to expand the landfill so that they'll have areas to continue to place waste and continue to operate. So does that answer your question as far as?
Vaguely. Yeah, so he's going to put 200 more feet on it, this is airspace. He's looking at these petitions, and you're on the verge of granting right to put 200 more feet on that thing.
Well, it's not, there is a layover. Come back to this one. So, again, the existing permitted limits waste placement is this black line that goes all the way around. They cannot place waste outside of that. The yellow part is the proposed expansion, so there is a little bit of a layover on the existing landfill, but as far as this part of the landfill getting taller, that's not the case. The heights, the 1,200 feet elevation is going to be part of the proposed expansion.
So the 1074 is going to stay
The 1074 is still down here.
Expansion.
Right, it's 1074 is down here, and as you come across this direction, there'll be a little bit of a valley. And then once you get over here to the proposed expansion area, it'll start coming up. And I believe this area has an elevation of roughly 1050 proposed in the proposed expansion.
Which area will have that?
This right here, this layover part, I believe.
1050.
Yeah, roughly 1050. So it's like 1074 here, it kind of goes down to a little bit of a valley. And as it starts coming up, this area is roughly 1050. And then it continues to climb. Like I said, the 1,200 elevation is about this area here.
Well, I've been around long enough that I've seen him get countless elevation variances. This is all irrelevant. He gets whatever he wants. But question number 2, referring to leachate, and all this is contained and confined and hauled off. I worked at Lowe's up there, and I've watched so many tankers roll out of that place. If that's where all the contaminated liquid is, where's it going?
So Rumpke can haul off some of the leachate in large tanker trucks, and I'm going to assume that's probably what it was that you were seeing.
That's what I was told.
So, these tanker trucks, they'll collect the leachate and they'll haul it off to the, I think it's the Guest Street station to send off to the wastewater treatment plant for treatment.
Well, that's a vicious cycle. It goes down to Guest Street. Guest Street can't incinerate nothing, so they float it out until it turns into cake, and then they haul it back out on the hill. I mean, right here, this man here's in close touch with him down there. What is it, 250,000 ton a day?
Okay, sir.
And out of county. Okay,
Sir.
I'll sit down. I have more to say.
Again, for folks who want to make statements, we can get to those. That's part of the public record, or part of the public hearing, I'm sorry. Sir, were your hand up because you had a question?
Yeah, I have a quick question. The only way we're going to stop this is zoning, not because of them getting a permit from the EPA, because they're meeting all the requirements of Ohio EPA and Ohio EPA is going to have them meet further requirements is because unless it passes Ohio EPA, and that would be statewide, and they're not going to do that just in this administration. So the point is, when is the next zoning meeting? We had this fight years ago where Rumpke was trying to expand before, and we fought it because of zoning. And I thought that was done.
Okay, sir, we can't, that's not a question that we can
I'm
answer.
bringing this to the audience. I mean,
Okay, sir, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to move on. Ma'am, you're next.
My turn.
Yes.
On February 28th, subsequent to a phone call with Heather Lauer, L-A-U-E-R.
Yes, that would be me.
Oh, hi Heather.
Hi.
What? I sent you an email on February 28th. The purpose of the email was twofold. One, to complain about the stench and to provide public comment on the problems at Rumpke. And yet you reported to the media that nobody was given any complaints about Rumpke at all to you for the comment period. And the second is, I asked you, I wanted to ask you questions so that when I came, I could talk halfway intelligently. Most of this stuff is way over my head. And so I asked you a lot of questions, including making a public records request of you for every violation Rumpke has had in the last 10 years. That was February 28th. I sent you a reminder earlier last week and said, you still have not answered my questions. Okay, so I want to know, we're all here asking questions. I don't feel like we're getting great answers, but we're getting some good answers. But I gave you over a month to answer very explicit questions and comply with the public records request. And you still haven't do it. So why did you not respond to my questions?
Okay, Mrs.
Or even
Davis.
acknowledge me?
Okay, Mrs. Davis, we have had a conversation. You sent me an email and I had responded to your email. You commented that I had said to the media that we had not received any comments. That's not the case. I'm not a media spokesperson. And that was, I'm sorry you asked me, and I'm sorry. I don't know what the news reported. I don't know which outlet, but.
I just wanted you aware of that. But I asked you 13 questions, and I think you gave me a 2-sentence acknowledgement email, and I kept waiting for more. And when I didn't get any more answers from you, I waited till last week and said, you know, the meeting's coming up. How can I ask you questions of you if you won't answer a simple question like how many violations has Rumpke had in the last day?
Mrs. Davis, I will go back and I will look at the emails that we exchanged. I don't. Okay. I believe that we have, I don't know what to say to you. I will do my best to go through those with you. However, I believe that one of the questions that you had asked was that you wanted to better understand the actual engineering and what Michael had done.
Well, you told me that really there's not much we can do on a lot of issues when people just come saying it stinks. There's nothing we can do about that. That we have to work within certain parameters of the law. And if people do not come to this hearing and give complaints on something they can actually do, and you gave me an actual example of that, then you said we can't act. So to come and just say it stinks, we can't take it, it's horrible, it's a waste of time. So I made the extra effort and did significant research so I could come here and say, for example, okay, I call in a complaint, you guys come out and validate it, and after that, you don't do anything. You don't go walking into Rumpke with your stench and say, what are you doing different today that it smells so horrific that you weren't doing last night when it didn't smell bad?
Okay.
So there's no process.
Okay. Let me say this, and I will apologize because our interactions are not, they do not, if I have failed you in our interactions, then I sincerely apologize and I will do what I can going forward. Now, Mrs. Davis, there is a room full of people who I would like to be able to ask questions of the experts. If there are no more questions, then we will move into the public comment period. And I will speak with you. I will do what I can to see that this is not the only list of questions that you have given me. Okay, so sir, I know you've asked questions before. Is there anybody else who has any questions? I have this lady back here, and then this gentleman, and then I will go to you, sir.
My understanding, I do understand that these gases that are being emitted have a lot to do with the stench. Okay? There are ways that they can use this as renewable energy. Now, do you have any family is doing, I've lost all my things. I have my family extremely lucky. But now I never get I do know a lot about the EPA. I know a lot about what these gases can do. I know that we can use this for renewable energy to save people a lot of money in this area. Now, if we have to deal with this stench, and we have to deal with all these problems, then the people in Colerain Township ought to benefit from it somehow. Amen.
Okay, that is a great comment to make on the official public record. There,
I'm asking the question, are you planning on doing it?
are you, okay, so is your question,
Are you planning on using it as renewable energy?
okay, they are currently doing that. They are currently, that's,
I have not seen how they be doing it, because there's no,
So-
you can look at it and it's not, that's not the way to do it.
So what Rumpke's doing with the gas that they're pulling out of the landfill, they're actually processing it and turning it into natural gas or electricity. With natural gas, they can put that back into the pipeline, or they can utilize that to help run some of their trucks, some of their fleet. So they are using the gas as a renewable resource. I mean, as far as monies from the gas, I can't speak upon that. But Rumpke is reusing, they are collecting the gas and they are reusing it.
okay.
Start some blue cards,
I beg your pardon?
The blue cards, we all signed up at the top.
Okay, so when I'm referring to the hearing, there are a number of people who said they want to comment on the official public record. Thank you. And what we're doing here is we're attempting to answer your questions as you pose them to get ready for the official public meeting. And we had a request.
Official record.
I beg your pardon?
It sounds like a lot of them want to go to the official record.
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear you.
People are wanting to speak on the record.
That's what I'm getting to. So I'm saying, if you all would like to end the question and answer period, or if we can say, you know, I can take 2 more questions, or if we hear from 2 more people, then we will take a short break, and then we will come back and we will enter the official public hearing. You guys okay with that? Okay, so we got this lady. Okay, let's take this lady and then you, sir.
Wait, let her wait. I've got the question there. On 275 here, we've got this yellow line. You say we're back 1,000 feet. From my understanding, and I don't know how many people think about this, what landscaping does the state going to require Rumpke to put there to block 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet of garbage?
So the question is, what landscaping is going to be put between the expansion and 275? To answer your question, we don't have any requirements on that. I don't know if ODOT would, but Ohio EPA does not.
So we can come right down to 1,000-foot level with garbage, the wind comes through, blows all that crap across 275.
Okay.
Semis coming along, we have a big wreck, we have a
Okay.
Right.
Ma'am, you next.
So, what is the process from here? The 4 of you have heard our many questions and certainly have fielded our frustration. And our questions, do they inform your process from here or not?
So that's a great question. So what we're trying, this part of the night that we're doing right now is not required by law. The hearing is required by law. And so this is to try to help give information that we have to folks who have questions. When we enter the public hearing, your words, your comments will be taken down in a stenographic record, and then we will respond in a response to comments. If you have a statement, then we answer the statement. If you have questions, then we answer the questions, if they're pertaining to the permit. Some questions, like the questions about blasting, they're outside all of our authority, and so we would indicate that in the response to comments. So when we enter this, when we do the hearing, and after I read a very long speech, then that's what we have to take into consideration. Okay? All right. At this point, it is 7:55. We'll take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 7:05, and then we'll start by reading the hearing speech and then going through these questions. Okay. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept comments on the official record regarding a draft permit to expand, a draft wastewater discharge permit, and 2 draft air permits. Ohio EPA published a public notice to announce the hearing and public comment period regarding the project in newspapers in the area. The notice was issued in Ohio EPA's Weekly Review, which is a publication that lists by county all agency activities and actions taking place in the state of Ohio. Written and oral comments received as part of the official record are reviewed by Ohio EPA prior to a final action of the director. To be included in the official record, written comments must be received by Ohio EPA by the close of business on April 9th, 2019. Comments received after this date may be considered as time and circumstances permit, but will not be part of the official record for this hearing. Written comments can be filed with me tonight or submitted to, for solid waste, Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, Division of Materials and Waste Management, P.O. Box 1049, Columbus, Ohio 43216, or epa.dmwmcomments@epa.ohio.gov. For surface water, Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, Division of Surface Water, Lazarus Government Center, Permit Processing Unit, 50 West Town Street, P.O. Box 1049, Columbus, Ohio 43216-1049, or email epa.dswcomments@epa.ohio.gov. And for air, Brad Miller, Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency, 250 William Howard Taft Road, Cincinnati, Ohio 43219. Also, these addresses can be found on the back side of your agenda for this hearing. It is important for you to know that all comments received in writing at the agency, all written comments given to me tonight, and all verbal comments given here tonight are given the same consideration. I ask that all exhibits, including written speeches, maps, photographs, and any other physical evidence referred to in your testimony be submitted to me tonight as part of the official record. If you choose not to submit the information, Ohio EPA cannot ensure the accuracy of your testimony. A court reporter is here to make a record of tonight's proceedings. Questions and comments made at the public hearing will be responded to in a document known as a response to comments. The director, after taking into consideration the recommendations of the program staff and comments presented by the public, may issue or deny the permit. Once a final decision is made by the director, the final permit decision along with the response to comments will be made available to anyone who requests a copy. Final actions of the director are appealable to the Environmental Review Appeals Commission, or ERAC. The board is separate from Ohio EPA and reviews cases in accordance with Ohio's environmental laws and rules. If you wish to present testimony at the hearing tonight and have not already completed a blue card, please do so now and return it to me or an Ohio EPA representative. The cards are available at the registration table. Everyone may testify only once and speak for 5 minutes, so I ask that you use your time wisely and that you are respectful to others providing their comments and questions. There is no cross-examination of the speaker or Ohio EPA representatives in public hearings of this type. Ohio EPA's public hearings afford citizens an opportunity to provide input. Therefore, we will not be able to answer questions during this hearing. The hearing officer or an Ohio EPA representative may ask clarifying questions of speakers to ensure that the record is as complete and accurate as possible. If you have a question, please phrase your comments in the form of a question, and the agency will address your comments in writing within the response to comments. We will now receive testimony. As I call your name, please step up to the microphone. I'm going to have folks stand about here. State your name, spell it for the record, and proceed with your testimony. Okay, I'm going to hold this mic. This is for community access television. The first person to testify tonight is Bonita Sargent. Hang on just a second. I need to set the timer. Go ahead, if you could stand there. I will start. If you could spell your name for the court reporter.
Bonita Sargent, Bonita Sergent. I think, first of all, that the community has said loud and clear, we have put up with this Rumpke smell for the last, myself, I've lived here 44 years. Other people in the audience have lived here over 50 years. If you have currently a 200-acre and now you're going to expand more than double it to a 500-acre. You cannot give us answers of why the smell. That's the biggest thing we keep hearing tonight is the smell. The people from the EPA do not live in our community, so this is directed at Rumpke, who's asking for the expansion. You should have been here tonight. You should have been in touch at the table and answered some of our questions that are valid questions to you as one of our neighboring people that help run the community. We are having a community called a beautification of Colerain Avenue. How can you do a beautification of Colerain Avenue when we have to look at a garbage dump that you want to expand from 1,074 feet to 1,200 feet right over to the expressway, per the EPA, 1,000 feet from 275? But you want us to be beautification. We are known in other townships, Liberty Township, Anderson Township, Green Township. Oh, you live by the dump. Oh, you live by that stinky place, the dump. What do you think my grandchildren in 30 years are going to be standing at a microphone asking? Oh, now you want to go to 2,000 feet. Now you want to expand 2,000 more acres. Pretty soon, Colerain Township's going to be Rumpke Township. And the odor has to stop. If you want us to help you expand that place, you need to listen to all the comments here about the odor. And I'm very, very disappointed that nobody from Rumpke sat up here and answered our questions. You run the dump, you own the dump, you're in charge of the dump. You should have enough average intelligence to come up here and answer questions that these people couldn't. I don't expect them to know everything. But Rumpke, you've been running Rumpke since 1972. You should have been here.
Okay, the next person to testify will be Christine Freebers, and Richard McVeigh is on deck. State your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Okay, my name is Christine Freiberg.
Okay.
Christine Freiberg. I have been a longtime resident of Colerain Township, recently moved back 3 years ago. I have left Colerain for 11 years and recently moved back. A couple of things. I know the Ohio EPA couldn't answer all the questions tonight, but I did want to challenge you guys to stay here for about a couple of weeks, smell the odors that everybody has been complaining. On the weekends especially, when you go to Walmart, when you're trying to do your grocery shopping or going to Lowe's, and you can smell the odor, not only in the parking lot, but inside Walmart, as you're trying to shop. Another thing I wanted to say is that our township trustees were here at the meeting, and somebody mentioned in the audience about zoning. I hope our township trustees will listen to these citizens and start having zoning do their job and starting to look at the contract and having Rumpke and enforcing that Rumpke abide by the zoning laws or the contract that was given back when the lawsuit was settled. Because obviously with the odor, it's not helping. I'm not seeing any results. I'm hearing more of sort of side talk from our meetings. Another thing I like to suggest, maybe Rumpke do a better job on recycling initiatives to reduce some of the trash that is going into the dump, so we're not doubling or tripling our expansion. And that's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Next is Richard McVeigh. Dick Semple is on deck.
Here's my comments and attachments to go on the record. Rich McVeigh, 8198 Daleview Road.
Stand here, please.
It would be MCVAY, 8198 Daleview Road. I ask that the permit as currently proposed to expand the landfill be denied for 3 reasons. The permit to increase the lateral height to 1,200 feet does not meet township requirements. The current landfill is polluting the environment. The expanded landfill will quite likely also be a major source of air pollution. First, per the EPA, the height of a solid waste landfills in Ohio are limited by a combination of factors: engineering considerations, local zoning, FAA considerations, and state landfill design criteria. Colerain Township and Rumpke agreed in the 2000 consent decree to limit the height of the landfill to 10,074 feet. The 2015 consent decree between Colerain Township and Rumpke supports the lateral expansion of the landfill and adheres to the 2000 consent decree. There is no legal basis for the Rumpke request to increase the height to 1,200 feet. The expanded landfill needs to adhere to the 1074-foot mutually agreed limit. Second, odors. The Ohio Revised Code says the owner or operator of a landfill shall operate the facility in such a manner that operation does not create a nuisance or health hazard, does not cause water pollution, pursuant to Chapter 6111. The definition of a nuisance. Nuisance means anything which is injurious to human health or offensive to the senses, interferes with the comfortable enjoyment of life or property, affects the community, neighborhood, or any considerable number of persons, although the extent of annoyance or damage inflicted upon individual persons may be unequal. It's important to point out that while some suggest they are not impacted by the odors, it has no weight or bearing on the need to adhere to the law. Data compiled by Southwest Air Quality reveals the Rumpke landfill on Hughes Road is the largest air polluter in Hamilton County in 2018. Southwest Air Quality received 250 Rumpke odor complaints in 2018. The next highest air pollution source in Hamilton County had 5 odor complaints. In 2009, an underground fire developed at the north end of the landfill. In March of 2010, the EPA issued orders to Rumpke on how to address the issue. The major changes requested were to install a low permeability cover and more active management of the wellheads in the affected area. While there has been some reduction in reported odors, the data provided by the Southwest Air Quality and NPS monthly data prepared by Rumpke reveal the fire continues and the affected landfill sinks about 10 feet per year. Over 50,000 gallons per day of leachate from the fire are being trucked away to another facility because of the corrosive impacts on the fluid and public sewers. Odor complaints fall into 3 categories. People report a strong, acrid, gaseous smell as a result of the continuing underground fire. There are some reports that describe as garbage, and there are complaints about perfume or deodorizer. Review of the research dealing with landfill fires and the operation of landfill gas management system reveals proactive management of the landfill is needed to reduce the amount of oxygen and water that enters the landfill. The only way oxygen enters the landfill is to be drawn into the field. Analysis of several years of monthly NSP reports, you got them here, that between 20 to 30% of the wellheads in the affected area are out of control for either high temperature or excess oxygen. Importantly, due to the fact that some wellheads have been tied together into a single sample, raises questions about the validity of some of the data. As of 2018, odors from Rumpke are still running about 350% higher than they were experienced before a fire. The continued infiltration of oxygen into the landfill is feeding the fire, leading to the yearly sinking in odor production. All the outcomes are side effects of aerobic activities. While it appears Rumpke is following the EPA requirements, it's clear these directions are not incorporating the best available technology. The data suggests the solutions are provided are not adequate. Garbage odors are most likely because Rumpke has obtained a waiver for daily cover of the dumped garbage. As the active dumping of garbage progresses, south of the landfill has become more obvious to residents. Rumpke recently asked for approval of use of compost as an alternative daily cover. I talked with Hamilton County Solid Recycle EPA representatives. I was inquiring to determine what specifications exist for the use of compost. Those discussions revealed there are no specifications covering the use in our compost makeup. Rumpke can do what they please. Residents complain the perfume being sprayed to mass gas and garbage orders is offensive. Some report health and allergic reactions. The Hamilton County Health Department instructs those residents with concerns to visit their doctor. Data generated by Southwest Air Quality reports submitted by Rumpke and odor complaints from residents all reveal the current landfill is running out of control. Third, the permit under consideration is for the expanded landfill essentially outlines the same management and operating practices that exist in the current landfill. It's reasonable to assume that without some change in the permit, similar unstable conditions could appear in the expanded landfill, and this cannot be allowed to occur. The existing agreements between Colerain Township and Rumpke limit the height of the landfill to 1074. The current landfill is running in violation of the Ohio Revised Code. The Rumpke landfill is the largest air polluter in Hamilton County by a factor of 50 to 1. The operation of the landfill and the landfill gas mining operations appear not to be using the best available technology. An expanded landfill that follows the current EPA operating requirements can likely experience similar to current landfill problems. The problems with the current landfill need to be resolved. The permit for the expanded landfill needs to be incorporate the best available technology to ensure safe operation for the next 30 to 40 years. I ask the transcripts of this public hearing and any other information shared during or after the hearing are shared with Governor Mike DeWine, EPA Director Lori Stevenson, and Federal EPA Director Wheeler. Thank you.
I'm not playing Angry Birds. I'm using my phone as a timer. We have Dick Semple up and John Acton, I believe, is on deck.
Jim
If
Acton.
you could stand here. Are they ready?
Jim.
Jim?
Jim Acton.
Jim Acton. I'm sorry, Jim Acton is on deck.
Good evening. First thing I do is I want to.
Sir, can you state your name
I'm sorry.
and spell it? I'm sorry. I have to hold it.
When you're hard of hearing, you don't hear all the questions.
I'm sorry.
Dick Semple, D-I-C-K-S-E-M-P-L-E. Okay, that is the initial statement. You're going to hold that there?
I'm sorry.
I want to thank the committee for coming out here tonight. They're under a lot of pressure to answer questions that they don't always have the answers to. But we should look at things realistically. Rumpke is here, and they're not going away. They made a substantial investment. I'm not necessarily pro-Rumpke. I'm very much interested in our community. I've been here for 50 years. I've seen a lot of change in 50 years, not always to the good. We have other issues besides Rumpke to deal with, but they're the hot topic for most of the people in this room and for a lot of other people. I think we should be thinking about what we can do to get a better working relationship with Rumpke in terms of how they can provide benefits back to the community, and we know what they can do for us. I mean, we know what we give them in terms of our criticisms and things like that, but when you see their investment of their new building, you know that they're committed to this area. A member of my family worked for Rumpke. I know a lot of stories about Rumpke that I'm not going to put on record today, but they're very successful. And we should be complimentary of a business that's willing to work in our township and has made something out of what we have to work with. We don't have a lot of other businesses that are part of our commercial plane of business. They're our primary one. So I think we need to find a partnership between them and us, and more to the positive end of things rather than the negative end of our relationships. I know I'm kind of abstract there, but I'm empathetic with neighbors that have to deal with the odors. That's all part of the negative benefits of them working in our community. But the positive thing is they're one of the largest landfills in the state of Ohio. They take business as far away as Mansfield, as far as the state goes. We need to work with them. we need to figure out, and especially I lay a challenge down to our committee, not a committee, but our township trustees, to set a meeting up with the leadership of Rumpke in a public setting so they can answer these questions. So we don't go through third-party people like the EPA. Let's find out one-on-one what's all going on and what their future plans are, so we know how far out of the ground this landfill is going to be in 50 years. I won't be here, but the children of Colerain Township will be here. So we have to keep the future of our community at the front of everything that we talk about. Thank you.
Thank Okay, I'm just going to tell y'all, these folks were respectful, and I expect everyone to be respectful to them. This is a public hearing. After Mr. Acton is going to be, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to pronounce your name, Raja
Kapoor.
Thank you. Okay, sir, if you could state your name and spell it for the court reporter, that would be wonderful.
Jim Acton, A-C-T-O-N. Not John.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Again, I respect, the EPA being down here. It's a shame that they don't live locally here, except for one member. But I am in favor of limitations. If we continue with what we're doing now or what the EPA has been under advisement from Rumpke to go to 12,000 feet or 1,200 feet, if you just look at that from 275 particularly, you'd be looking probably at a 13 or 14 foot building standing out there in front of you, nothing to block your view. That's why I asked about the blockage between the yellow line and 275. I don't know what the EPA or how ODOT or the state can tell Rumpke to do something about it, but many of you probably remember the accident we had a few years back where the semi ran over so many people. And a lot of it was due to the climate at that time. But if you got an open field here with trees, with nothing to block this, my suggestion is probably a 30-foot wall with shrubbery and trees to block it, so when this comes up over the hill, it's going to be going into the trees instead of out among us pedestrians out there. I don't know how many other people feel the way I do, but we got to eliminate the height. I know that if you don't realize it, but if you look outside your house at the front of it and you look up from the roof up, you got a 750-foot airspace there that you can keep airplanes, anything else out of it. If Rumpke goes to 1,200 feet, we're looking at 1,900 feet. FDA may want to look at this and consider is it safe for private pilots and people like that to fly over it? Or if you're uncomfortable with that, suggest other ideas. Thank you very much.
Next on deck will be Robert Hanneman. Thank you, Senior. Okay, so I've got.
I'll pronounce it.
No. If you could please
Spell
state
it.
your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Raj, R-A-J, Rajagopal, R-A-J-A-G-O-P-A-L. I'm a Colerain Township trustee. Okay. I'm here to attend this hearing and see what's the people's feeling about the expansions. We heard a room full of people talk about what's going on, what's going to happen. Colerain Township is a beautiful township. We had to look about the future of the township. The children, in 20 years, we'll be gone. I'll be gone. But what happened to the children? What type of environment are they going to have? They go out to play, live, healthy living. And these guys here, they saw the paperwork. They're going to make a determination. But finally, at the end, they had to think about what the people say, the room full of people. I got the two things I really want to pay attention to. All night long, we heard about these order things. It's very, very important things. The work with the Rumpke, how to subdue this, that odor smell. I got two documents here. One is a consent decree, 2000 code order consent decree. At the time, the township and the Rumpke made agreement. At the time, this is a paper, the court ordered agreement. They agreed they were going to, the new height will go like 1,074 feet. Then they come up with the expansion landfill. There's a 2015 consent decree. They went in front of the judge, Common Pleas Court. They agreed to follow 2000 consent decree. It didn't say anything about 1,200 feet. People are here sitting there all concerned about this, how height the 12,000 feet will affect the township, also the future environment, also the living conditions. My concern is, I know the Rumpke is trying really hard to work with the community. I really appreciate that. They have a good relationship with the community. They do a lot of things for our community. But at the bottom line, what we're going to do for the future generation, giving the environment the better living conditions, what all the people talk about, the noise level. This is very important things they're hearing people think about it. 2015 consent decree follows the 2000 degree, which is 1,074 feet. People will be happy with this, follow with that. They're all upset right now because that's going to go up to top, 1,200 feet. Very, very critical, very critical. Two things, Rumpke to follow, how to minimize the odor smell, giving you better conditions for the future generations. The expansion we're going to do, it may create, if we cannot subdue what the smell is right now, how are we going to expand that will add that more smell? All these people are afraid. They come here and talk about this, waiting all night long. Because this is a thing that you guys should take it for the consideration and make your final determinations. Thank you.
Robert Hanovan.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Hanovan. Next up will be Keith
I thought
Miller.
you said I was on deck.
You are now.
Oh, okay.
And so Keith Miller, I think, will be on deck.
Okay,
I'm
my
sorry,
name's Robert Hanovan.
Okay, I'm sorry. Give me a second. I have to set the time for the clock. Which technology, jeez. Okay, if you could state your name and spell it for the record.
Robert Hanovan, H-A-N-A, V as in Victor, A-N.
Okay.
I'm a senior. I've been here 68 years. And just going to church makes me sick. The odor is just so bad. Getting out of my car, I have to almost run into the church. You almost have to hold your breath. And I just think that this landfill's been a failure. I mean, it's caught on fire. We've had to breathe all that smoke for months at a time. And now they're saying there's a reaction that they can't control underneath of the existing landfill. Why would you take one failure and build another one right next to it, not knowing what even caused that reaction in the first one? I think the Rumpkes are a good family. They go to my church, and some of them. And it's nothing against them. It's just that if you're going to build something that stinks that bad and is that bad of a failure and that bad for the environment, build it out in the country. Don't build it around all these people. I mean, it's bad enough that we got this one already. Why would we want another one right next to it? That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. After Keith Miller, Mike Parsons is on deck. Stand here and state your name and spell it for the record.
Okay, Keith Miller, Keith, Miller, Miller. Sort of dumbfounded. I mean, this dump's been fought since '60, and it's never even slowed it down. It just continues to grow. And how can anybody defend that? I mean, the stench is so bad. I mean, I live a couple of miles away, and it makes it to my house. I'm over on Compton Road, Compton and Coogan. It's making it that far, and sometimes fairly strong. And I'm just sort of, oh man, so upset with this. Just so upset with all this. I gotta watch what I say, because I see we did have Rumpke's back here in the room, and I see he didn't stand up. He's sitting back there, his eyes closed, sleeping right now, I think. But I mean, the amount of chemical being used is what, about 3 million gallons a day is being misted over this neighborhood? It's nothing but pure air pollution. And we are breathing this pure air pollution all day long. So when you're not smelling it, you're still breathing it, it's just being covered up with the air pollution. And what anybody says, there was a study at Harvard that says air pollution takes years off your life. So you're taking years off my life, and you let that double? It's not only going to affect Colerain Township, it's going to affect Mount Healthy, North Cottage Hill, Springfield Township, Fairfield, Forest Park, Ross. It's all them areas. When that doubles, that plume is just going to get bigger, and that's what it is. It's a plume. And it breaks apart and blows in different ways. I know everybody's in denial of what it really is, but it's a big plume, and it's growing bigger every day. And that's the stench. And we're not going to stop it, because nobody's going to say no to the expansion. Everybody's got their pockets open waiting. And I think the deal's already done, and this is just a big dog and game show. Thank you.
Mike Parsons with Jill Perry on deck. If you could stand here and state your name and spell it for the record.
Mike Parsons, Mikeparsons. It sounds to me, just from listening tonight, it is pretty much a done deal. It's been a done deal every year. I mean, go back 40 years, we were going for a 75-foot expansion. He tried to put some, top it out. There was some squawking. Lo and behold, a document turned up behind a file drawer down in the county building that granted him that expansion. I mean, it just doesn't end. So, here's one way that you could curb it, and this is a recommendation to the EPA. You know what, come up with some regulations that every county has to harbor their own refuse.
Yeah.
You know what? You know why we need an expansion here? Everybody will deny it, but it's almost obvious that trash is coming in from the whole eastern seaboard. I mean, my Lord, you can't collect enough trash in the tri-state area to fill that up as quick as you are. It's coming from somewhere, and I'll tell you what, it's easy to conceal transfer stations. Just go up Route 127 on north and count the transfer stations. Well, what? Wait, you could transfer that all the way out to New Jersey, New York. I don't know, you deny that it's happening, but how do you know it's not? You know what? How you would curb that is require every county to maintain their own dump. Now, that's my recommendation to the EPA. And let me ask you something. Environmental Protection Agency, yet the largest polluter, and we've got the recycling hazardous metals. The MSD drags it out here, dumps it on top of the dump. It goes down, comes out in the leachette. And we just heard tonight, the leachette goes right back down to Guest Street. So I'm paying for garbage, I'm paying for sewer, and all I'm doing is just paying a recycle gig. Well, you know, at some point, enough is enough. And for you kind EPA people, why don't you spend a couple days in town, drive up and down 275, go up on Mill Road up around the golf course and get you a good whiff on a warm afternoon. And we hear all about it. Well, it's a bad smell, but it's not hurting you none. Not hurting you none. Come on, it's raw pollution. To say nothing of what you're trying to mask it with, how many gallons of that pollution are you injecting into the atmosphere? You know, I mean, it's the elephant in the room. I understand we're in the age of cognitive dissonance, but my Lord, you know the nose knows. When's it going to stop? I mean, listening to you up here, it's all a foregone conclusion. Collusion. There's a Freudian slip there. Well, it is collusion. We wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't have a crooked trustee a few years back admit in open forum that he took money from Rumpke the very night he voted that sweetheart deal for him. A monopoly precluded Northern Kentucky garbage and handlers from coming in here and participating in the economy in this county. I pulled in a couple other townships, monopolized that. The big sale was, oh, it's going to be recyclables. You're all going to get rich off the kickback on the recyclables. Well, what happened? There's so many recyclables in the stream, they can't line up and get it in the dump fast enough. And that's been documented time and again. So, you know what? Whatever decision you come up with, it's a lawless operation. It's just going to continue. So next time, save your time. You know, just rubber stamp it and send it on up the pike. He's out there excavating already. You're not going to slow it up. But I'll tell you what, you could reorganize things.
1 minute.
1 minute? Come up with some regulations that every county is responsible for their own garbage. And that would go a long way. All of a sudden, we wouldn't need that expansion. We'd find more area up there than we could use. And again, let's get back to the fire, underground fire. Cognitive dissonance. You know what we got as a chemical reaction? No, we got a fire. You know what? I can smell the soot from the fire down at my house several miles away, along with the Febreze and whatever else is being dumped in the atmosphere. Environmental Protection Agency. Well, who are you protecting? You're not protecting the health and well-being of the citizens of this township. Again, re-legislate so that every county is responsible for their garbage. If you want some recommendations, run that up the line. Thank you.
Joe Perry, followed by Charles Siebert. If you could state your name and spell it for the record.
My name's Jill Perry, Jillperry. And I have many concerns about this. Besides the smell, there's sonic booms. This is going to be right in between Northwest and Pleasant Run Middle School. I live right off of Pippin and Kemper. I can smell this constantly. Okay, these children are going to be walking right past this. There's no school bus service from Northwest. If you live within 2 miles of a school, you have to walk. So these children are going to be walking next to a dump. Okay, the roads, the noise, you know, the nuisances. There are so many nuisances, it's unbelievable. Okay, the smell, the pollution, the allergens, and the free radicals, the EPA, okay, the Environmental Protection Agency. And I understand you guys cannot answer all these questions, but a lot of them's common sense. We can answer these questions. Like your health. You go outside, you smell this stuff. Free radicals, you can see them in the air. They tore down Pleasant Run Elementary. Want to know one of the reasons why? You remember the dust in the schools? Okay, a lot of the kids were catching cancer. A lot of this stuff was floating in the air, like the man over there said. Free radicals fly in the air, pollution, all this stuff is flying around us, coming straight from Rumpke. You open your window to get fresh air, there's no fresh air. It's just stench, like everybody says. It's awful. And to boot, a lot of, and we're talking about Kentucky, Indiana, Virginia, West Virginia, a lot of landfills are closing. They're making this expansion. This is going to be a national landfill. This is not just going to be an Ohio landfill. This is going to be a landfill for the United States, for the Midwest. It's not just going to be for Ohio. I have traveled the entire Midwest. I've traveled all over the United States. I've seen Rumpke trucks all over the place. And they're closing a lot of landfills. And they're going to use this expansion as a national landfill. And it's going to take over where we live. Like I said, renewable energy, where I don't see any evidence of them using a renewable energy, and we surely are not benefiting from it. What is Colerain Township going to get out of this? I don't know. I don't know, because a lot of things are going on here like Fernald. Fernald people, they have to get tested once a year because of the things that, the cancer that has caused from being around Fernald. Same thing is happening here, but nothing is being done because of Rumpke. No one's being tested because of the radicals and the things going on. And I know this, my mother revised the book for the City of Cincinnati Board of Health. I'm very medically knowledgeable. There are things going on in this township that no one is taking care of. And you have to nip it in the bud now because it's getting out of hand. It's getting worse. They need to, I hope they deny this expansion because we are going to end up having the largest garbage dump in the Midwest. It's just a fact. We really need to get a grip on the things that are going on here. We need to shut this down before it gets worse. We need to take care of our own townships. Like the man said, we need to take care of our own garbage because right now what is happening is the ozone layer is being eaten up by this dump. And that's a fact. The EPA knows it, and there's no way to get around it. And all I can say is I sure hope they deny these permits, let this dump just ride out the end of its permit. It should have been closed in '91. I don't know how they got past all this, because this dump is just doing massive, deterioration to our township. I don't know what else to say.
Is it Seibert or Siebert? Okay. Next up is Terry Lyons. Is Terry still here? Okay. Randy Hogeback? Jill Rendering, thank you. And Bruce Verano is on deck. If you could stand here, state your name and spell it for the record. Okay.
Jill Rendering, Jillren, Rengering.
I still wasn't ready.
Oh, Jillrengering.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for doing all the hard work you do. And I know some people put you down because you're not here. And I wish you were here because then you could see what a fine job is being done. You come in and you hear bad comments, good comments, but you don't know the whole story. I moved directly across Rumpke's in 1955. We had a cistern, we had a garden. I'm probably one of the healthiest people you'd know. And I eat out of the garden, I drink water out of the cistern. And the Rumpke family lives in Colerain Township. They have enough money to move anywhere they want, but they're safe. They keep their family here because they're not doing anything wrong. The odor, I don't think they enjoy the odor any more than anyone else does, and they do what they can for it. And maybe if we didn't have to have all these stupid minutes or things where they're trying to fight them down, maybe they would have more time to work on that. But no one enjoys them, not anyone, but they do their best. I was behind a truck last week, and the man dumped the garbage, and a piece of paper about this size fell on the ground, and the driver actually picked it up. Now, I see people throw stuff out the window. They teach their people good. I had 3 brothers, a brother-in-law and a sister that worked for them. They have their rules, and their rules are enforced. And I do ask you to please pass this because we need it. We need the expansion because I want my garbage to be picked up. And for anyone in this room who doesn't feel safe, I don't think there's any law that says you have to live in Colerain. Move. I mean, I think it's absolutely asinine for someone to think that this is an unsafe place and live here. That's the first thing I'd do is move. And it doesn't look like that. It looks like most people would rather complain. So I'd just like to thank you, and I do want this passed because we do need it, and I want my garbage picked up. And can I just ask, is there anyone in this room that does not have Rumpke pick up their garbage? And that's not dumped at Rumpke? Picked up or dumped up?
I have a public. It was taken from me.
Okay, so there's very few people. If it would close down, I own 50 acres in Indiana. I could take mine somewhere. Where would you all take it?
Indiana. You need to be testifying.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, I just want to thank you for doing this, and I do hope that you pass it because it is good. They do follow the rules, and once in a while something might go wrong, but crap happens. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's go put our garbage in there.
Mr. Pirano, followed by Lauren Jacobs. Okay, give me a moment. I need to reset the clock. If you could state your name and spell it for the record, please.
Bruce Pirano, P-E-I-R-A-N-O. I've been a resident here for over 30 years. I've owned property for a lot more than that. I believe we need to expand this municipal landfill. Garbage has to go somewhere. I know people would have an NIMBY syndrome, send it someplace else. Well, it's got to go someplace, and it's here. Rumpke has been here since the 1940s, and as a professional, I evaluated some of these aspects of air pollution, water pollution, et cetera, and they're within compliance for the most sake. In fact, as landfills go, they are a fairly well-run landfill. As I said, garbage has to go somewhere, and people are afraid as expanding the landfill that it's going to have more odors. The working face is probably the stinkiest part, and there's going to be probably a similar working face to deal with. The air pollution aspect is not a human health issue. It's more an organoleptic. It's odors. Yeah, people don't like smelling odors, but if you realize what air pollution you have in your own house is probably worse in your own house. So again, I'm for this, and thank you all for putting up with us.
Thank you, sir. Lauren Jacobs is next, followed by Karen Metz. State your name and spell.
My name is Karen Metz, Karenmetz. I've lived in Colerain Township for 44 years, and initially we lived on Pottinger, so we were right across the highway from the dump. We didn't even know it was there. I mean, they were a good neighbor. We didn't know it was there. We didn't smell it. You couldn't see it. There weren't garbage trucks everywhere. It was a manageable size. Since then, we moved to Hanley. I live on Hanley Road now, and the smell is getting closer and closer to my house. I just think there should have been a point where this is enough for Colerain Township. And I don't think the expansion ever should have happened. I don't think that Colerain Township had the money or the means to fight it, which is kind of sad. But I mean, Rumpkes were good neighbors, but I think the expansion is wrong. I mean, we've got enough, and they should have stopped dumping in 91, and Colerain Township would still be a nice place to live.
Karen Metz, followed by Frank Walters. Is Karen not here?
That was Karen.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Losing it already.
Well, okay, Frank Walters.
He's downstairs. He was sitting, but can't come back.
He asked me to put his card to the back, and I can't until the end. Marianne Myers.
Marianne is two words with no E. Myers, M-A-Y-E-R-S. And thank you to the EPA for coming. This had to not be a very fun evening for you. I implore you, as a resident of Colerain Township, to find any means possible to halt the expansion, because it is a factor of the quality of life in Colerain Township. I'm fortunate, I live upwind, so I don't deal day to day with the smell other than when I'm traveling through the township. And quite frankly, we avoid Colerain Avenue as part of our normal route of life for this purpose because of the smell. The odor and the reaction, there's something wrong with the degree that is ongoing there, and I just implore you to find it and stop it for the health and well-being of this very large community. And to Colerain Township, I implore you to continue to fight for us, the residents, and to not sell us out. I realize that Rumpke is a large, powerful voice in our community. I realize that they have been in many ways a great corporate citizen to our community, but they are profit-driven. And they're a business. I understand being profit-driven. The township, though, you have to keep our health and well-being at the forefront of what you're seeking. And I implore you to do whatever you have through the courts or whatever means there are left to make Rumpke abide by what they've already agreed to, at least. If we can't back it down further to what it should have been, then at least hold them to what they already agreed to. And I just think that as a community, we have to do whatever we can to protect, what's left of our well-being and quality of life, and the future of our township, our property value, things that I realize the EPA cannot take into account, but the township, the trustees can. But again, to the EPA, thank you, and please, please, please find a way to say no. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I apologize. Has Charles Seibert testified? Okay. I have a card for Randy Hogoback. And last, I have a card for Frank Walters. Okay. Is there anybody else who wanted to testify tonight about these draft permits? Ma'am?
Carrie Davis, Carriedavis, Royal Heights Drive. I feel like I'm eating it, honey. It's all right. Anyway, 30%. We got 30% increase in the height, or a 30% increase in the amount that the EPA has already conditionally approved Rumpke to bring in every day, going from 9,000 to 12.5 thousand tons a day. There's no way we can get around the fact that that 30% plus increase is not going to equate to at least 30% more stench, 30% stronger, 30% longer, 30% further. I could not find in all my research, and you didn't answer my questions, so we didn't do any wind studies on this to determine how far this is going to go. Is this going to travel to an area where there are people who are oppressed in some way, physically or health-wise? So we haven't done any wind studies on it. We have not done any studies to determine how far the gas permeates past their borders. We're given a 500-foot setback, but studies routinely show that the gas permeates 1,000 foot from the actual landfill. So that means it's going into the people who borders its property. It's trespass, just like the odor, it's trespass. It is against the law. Someone up here said, well, we can't quantify that. Well, I can quantify odor for you. $5.6 million. $5.6 million is how much attorneys just got in Moraine, Ohio, from what you guys talked about, what was it called, Stony Hollow, for the stench. So for us to act like this is an unenforceable law is untrue. $5.6 million those residents were paid. Out in Virginia, I believe it was, a community living next to a hog farm, they were just compensated millions of dollars. Illinois was just compensated, what, $11 million? They were lucky. Their attorney general and their government body went after the landfill and sued them for odor. Okay? I was reading CDC reports. They do say that there's long-term health effects when you are continually exposed. 30% more trash. I did a poll on Facebook, just a friendly poll. I'm disappointed the EPA has not made an actually scientific effort to measure the response from the community. I think that's very lacking. I think it violates our due process rights. Having a public hearing only appeals to certain people. You could have done a study or a survey in some way, but I did one for fun. 30% of the people say, get Rumpke out of here. Another 30 people said, well, leave Rumpke alone.
Just let them do their business, you bought land here. And the remainder, I think it was 68, of the people who responded said, we like Rumpke, we appreciate Rumpke, we want them to control the stench. You know, we want them to follow the law and to respect the laws of this community that says do not stink us out. It's just gotten too bad. 30%. I went through the EPA reports last night on air quality. 30% of the time we are in at least a moderate level of stink. I want to say, you know, this is Colerain. We are not Flint, Michigan, okay? We are the home of Officer Dale Woods. We are the home of Brody Allen. We are the home of the Colerain Cards and the Northwest Knights, 58,000 strong. We are not Flint, Michigan. And we need our representatives, if Rumpke will not voluntarily engage in the appropriate behaviors to comply with the law, then we need to address it just like we have every other important issue that has come down the pike. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to testify this evening?
Frank. He's going to get his breath in a second.
Yeah, I just ran from across the street. So.
Do you need to take a moment?
I'll try.
Okay.
Do I have to say my name or anything? Or?
Yeah, you need to state your name and spell it for the record.
Okay.
And I need to hold the microphone.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Frank Walters, F-R-A-N-K-W-A-L-T-E-R-S.
They want to get you on community access.
Okay. Ready? Oh, so last Tuesday at the trustees meeting, many residents spoke about issues and complaints about Rumpke. They've done this for the past couple months, since October, November. And we've not heard any answers back. So basically all the questions, we pose them, but we never hear answers. So I compiled all the questions from the past 5-6 trustee meetings that were on Waycross recorded. I documented all the outstanding questions and I sent an email to the 3 trustees and CC'd the admins, administrators. And so we're still waiting for those 14, 15 questions to be answered. Richard and probably Kathy and others probably pose those same questions, but I'll try and capture a few of them. So the height. So the residents' position is the township is the governing body as to the height, not the EPA. The EPA can approve it, but first Rumpke should come to Colerain Township administrators and ask for a height increase. If the township says no, then Rumpke never goes to the EPA. So we've asked the township to get legal counsel to verify the 2015 and 2000 consent decree state that Colerain Township and Rumpke have a legal agreement as to the height. It stays at 1050 or 1074, not 1200. So if they want 1200, they need to come to Colerain Township, administrators, zoning, and get the trustees to approve a height increase. That's the residents' position. We've asked the trustees and the administrators, go get legal counsel, review the 2 consent decrees, and figure it out. Come back and tell the residents what is the process. So that's what we're hoping to find out. So we're asking you not to approve any height increase until we understand that process. We want to make sure that the process is followed. So if Rumpke is supposed to come to the township, that's what we want happening before they go directly to the EPA. So that was the first one. The second one was about the odor. So we hear a lot of words about best BAT, best
available technology.
Available technology. So, you know, the odor from 2010 where they used a blanket. Well, if they put a blanket on today, that's 8-year-old technology. So what we're asking for is somebody let the residents know what is the current, the best available technology in 2019 to fix a current problem. So, you know, putting deodorizer, is that the best answer in 2019? Putting a blanket on that, is that the best answer for 2019? So the same with the fire. A fire can only burn if there's oxygen. So if some, the wellhead is pulling gas out, it's got to be pulling air in. Has anybody asked Rumpke to turn those heads off for a day, 2 days, 5 days, and hopefully that fire goes out? Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. We'd like to know. So there probably are better, best available technology on how to put out fires, starve the oxygen. So we just like to get answers to what is Rumpke doing on certain things. Why are they going to the EPA directly if they really have this legal agreement to go to the township? I know you only, okay, thank you. I know it's only 5 minutes. The other one is about operating compliance. So basically, when Rumpke doesn't meet a certain operating standard, and there's a penalty with that, the question is it self-reported and the penalty is directly paid by Rumpke? Or does the residents have to report that failure or issue, and then does the township have to ask Rumpke to finally pay the money? So we want Rumpke to self-report and self-fund the penalty. Don't give the overhead of the resident has to call in and say, you missed picking up on my street today. Rumpke has GPS. They know what streets they missed. They should self-report and self-fund those penalties. All right, thank you.
Anybody? Okay. All right, now. If there are no further requests to present testimony, we will end the hearing. Remember, written comments will be accepted through the close of business on April 9, 2019. These can be sent to, for solid waste, Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, Division of Materials and Waste Management, P.O. Box 1049, Columbus, Ohio 43216, or by email epa.dmwmcomments@epa.ohio.gov. For surface water, Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, Division of Surface Water, Lazarus Government Center, Permits Processing Unit, 50 West Town Street, P.O. Box 1049, Columbus, Ohio 43216-1049, or epa.dswcomments@epa.ohio.gov. Or for air, Brad Miller, Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency, 250 William Howard Taft Road, Cincinnati, Ohio 45219. This concludes today's hearing. Thank you for your testimony, cooperation, and participation in Ohio EPA's decision-making process. The time is now 9:15, and this hearing is adjourned.